Friends, if you're looking for real old school laughs, you're in for a treat because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember MEAD magazine? Then it went woke? Well, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to Midnight's Edge After Dark. I am Tom Gunners. We have with us CC Karaoke. How are you doing? Look at that lovely view.
Glad to be here as always. Just it's travel day today. Went from my previous campgrounds to this campgrounds, which is one of my favorites. And you can probably see
Feels
why.
like John Denver should be playing in the background or something.
Yeah, I just turn some on and stare out the window for the next week.
We got some guests there.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, this is what's funny is we've been sitting here looking at this now for 20 minutes, waiting to see who else was going to show up before we started the show, just chit-chatting. Not a single fucking person has gone by.
That's how it works.
Now all of a sudden, 3 people go by and a dog. It's like they were waiting all this time, like it's the Truman Show. Only it's the CC
There's
Karaoke
a walking
show.
trail, you know. Yeah.
But welcome, how you been?
Yeah, but you know, it's one of those things you can just sit here and do nothing all day because you just lose yourself in the view.
Nice.
Which, I think I can use that.
Absolutely. We also have Clobbering Times with us. How are you doing?
Hey, buddy. All right, man. Thanks for having me. Good to see you guys, and good to see you wonderful friends in the chat out there. Let's have some geek clobbering fun tonight.
Absolutely. We're a bit scant on the news. That's why there's really nothing in the title. There's kind of like one. It actually looks. Hey, Andy, I can send you the link. And say, there's only like really one story to talk about. And it's kind of more just to laugh at. Because I'll believe it when I see it. But we'll get to that in just a moment here. Otherwise, I'm going to let the audience stir us tonight. Whatever you guys super chat in for us to talk about, I guess we'll talk about it. But do try to keep it YouTube friendly, because I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but Gary had a video go down over at Nerdrotic about the end of the woke. And he got a strike for it.
Really?
Yeah. So
the end of the woke was just like it was just a. What was it about?
I haven't got to see the video yet, but he's got it up on Rumble at least, where you can still see it.
Oh, wow.
He got a strike for it, evidently. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Do you know what they claimed it for? Was it like community guidelines or?
I'm assuming something like that, but I didn't catch he just had it tweeted out. I just got back here myself, so I haven't had a chance to really check into it all. But
weird.
So, yeah, I'm gonna say we're gonna keep it as clean as we can anyway.
Yeah.
So somebody in the chat enlighten us then. Because I'd like to know.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's what it's for. I just saw his tweet about it, and that's kind of all he said. He didn't specify what. So, but Elf is in the house. He says, "Hey Tom, I found the origins of the Baby Godzilla and Mothra video. Awesome. The channel is called Tool Brownie, a 3D content creator. And yes, there's another."
Wow.
Nice.
On it. Tool Brownie. Okay. Tool Brownie. Is this it? Yes, this is it. Okay. So let's see. Oh my gosh. We got another one, guys. Oh my gosh.
What?
Oh my gosh. I gotta wait for a stupid ad to get past, and then I'll bring it up. Oh my God, is this adorable?
Oh,
It's not as long as the last one, but thank you for finding this, Elf. This is awesome. Oh my gosh. This guy, if he's listening or if he knows anything about us, make me some of these. I would pay you.
no. I love it. Wow. Nice. Good job.
I want more baby Godzilla. Oh God, yes. This is amazing. I want all of them. I want all of them. Oh, that is so adorable. I can't wait till Baby Kong versus Godzilla. Oh my gosh. It's so adorable.
Oh man.
It does. The guy does a great job. So Tool Brownie is the name of the channel here. I'll grab the links so you guys can. We've got 27,000 subscribers. Tell him MEAD sent you. Midnight Edge After Dark. Cool. There you go.
Excellent.
Maybe he'll be cool with us. Got a couple of cool looking videos here. A couple of other Jurassic Park and Godzilla ones he's been working on, it looks like. So yeah, that's neat. Cool.
Very cool.
That's awesome. Well, he's got a new subscriber in me, and hopefully you guys as well.
Yeah. The
link is in the chat there. Yeah, screw Baby Yoda. Who needs that? We got Baby Godzilla. Max Relax says Elon Musk plays Thrawn. Should be hired to play Data as well. Interesting. I heard that he looks kind of like Elon Musk.
Yeah, he does.
I didn't watch it. You watch it?
Oh, he did.
So what's your brief review of Ahsoka?
It sucks. How about that? Is that brief enough for you? No,
Ahsoka.
It's Ahsoka. It's just boring drivel. I'm one who actually liked. I liked Rebels, fair enough, a little bit, but this thing's meandering drivel that just kind of kicks the can down to the next episode with a bunch of filler, much of really. It's like, yeah. I hate to say it. You ever to bring this up, but you ever listen to NPR? It's like Star Wars, acted out on NPR. It's like you're watching. When you're watching, you feel like your time is slowing down. Everyone talks slowly, and it's like living in molasses, and nothing ever really happens on the show to kick the can down to each other episode. And it's just like you're supposed to know Rebels to know what's going on. It's filled with crappy. Everyone has reviewed it far better than I have because I have no intention of reviewing it. I've been sitting through it. Isn't that enough, right? And each episode is more proof that they don't really know what they're doing and don't really have any coherent story ahead of us. The characterizations, except for like the Ray Stevenson character, Balin or whatever, most of the characters are pretty lame. He's pretty good. I like the voice as a voice actor. I like the actor doing Thrawn. He did the voice on Rebels. It was really good. The way they visually realize him on this show, which was this week, the first time we see him, is like they say, you can look at that face and go, yeah.
Isn't the actor somebody's brother? Isn't it like Mads Mikkelsen's brother?
Mads Mikkelsen's brother, Lars.
Yeah, Lars. Yeah,
good actor. You look at him, people have been making fun of his dad bod, and you can't help it. It's kind of like, wow.
Yeah, I've heard about that. It's like, I mean, if you watch Rebels and you know Thrawn, I mean, Thrawn's an extremely fit individual.
Fit
no, not just of mind, but like physically, he is.
Yes, he's physically
prime. Fit. And so they have him as a dad bod on the show.
It's tough not to let your mind go towards into the direction if they really meant this to make him look like Elon Musk. It's tough not to entertain that perhaps outlandish conspiracy theory. It's I mean, I don't know. It almost seems like that's the case. But it's also the show is just drab. It's dreary. The characterization, I just never cared about Ahsoka anyway. I never really cared much for Sabine. I won't do any spoiling or anything like that. I just suffice it to say, I think this show is dumb and dull.
Oh, I mean, I actually loved the characters when the show, like at the end of Rebels, I was really excited for this show. I couldn't wait. It's just how how much a few years makes a difference. Because I haven't watched Ahsoka yet. I just,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I liked Rebels fine, but I mean, this is what do I know? Not too good. And again, contrast with a certain other show that's out there that has great exuberance and excitement and is exhilarating and fresh and fun, and not called Star Wars. But anyway.
it's one of the, like, if anybody out there is really enjoying the show, great, and I'm glad. And maybe one day I will watch it and I'll enjoy it too. I mean, I don't know. I'll know when I watch it. For me, it's difficult. I actually do care about some kind of cohesiveness with canon, and I know that not everybody is as particular about that, because you can enjoy something on its own if it's well made and it can just stand on its own. But I do love the idea of having some kind of cohesiveness with just where all the pieces fit together. And Disney has not succeeded on that level. So
yeah. Well, we have a few more guests joining us here. We got Price of Reason and Nick Weiser. How are you doing?
Hey. Hello.
Yo. Hi, chat.
I know it's hard to come in after that voice, isn't it, Nick? He comes in all like, hey. It's like trying to say something after Barry White talks or something.
It really is. It's like, how do you follow that up? It's like you almost like you don't, because
kind of like Chris Pratt with Thor. You almost have to like just try and. It's like, are you talking lower with your voice? No, this is my regular voice. That's not your regular voice.
Yeah, no, for real. But no, happy to be here. I'm aware that's obviously a very slow news day, but still, let's make good of the Thursday so we can entertain our ever so excellent chat, and hail to all you wonderful humans.
Jumping off of the Disney news, I guess we got a couple super chats to get to, but yeah, we got this news here from Fox. According to Bob Iger, he's going to vow to quiet the noise and culture wars. We're going to talk a little bit about that in just a minute here. NZ Greg has been a member for 8 months. Thank you for that. It's almost a baby. Tiger Valley says, watch Netflix One Piece. Curious, what do you think of Sanji and Usopp? They condensed their introductory arcs too much, in my opinion, especially Usopp. Tiger Valley, I did not mind. I like the show. In fact, we were just talking about the show before we got started. In fact, I was like with Claudia, I'm like, we should be having this conversation on the air. Yeah. Because I was asking him how he felt about it because he had just watched it. So real briefly, how did you feel about it, Bobby?
Well, you need that seems to come from
with spoilers.
Yeah, I'm not
3 episodes away.
I'm not going to spoil or anything. That statement there from Tiger Valley probably sounds like someone who knows the manga or the anime, and from then I haven't read or watched either, so I was perfectly fine with the way they did Sanji and Usopp. But that said, so I have nothing to retort with that, other than I loved the way they did it on the show. But if you're someone, if they did it quite differently in the manga, which I'm sure they did, I can see why you would not be fond of them cutting corners or whatever they did. But I don't know what they did because I haven't read it.
Mm-hmm. I got a counter piece to that piece. So even though I'm 5 episodes in, I have read the first 3 volumes of the manga, which I truly do enjoy. And there is, I was wondering, because one of my small, I guess you could say, nitpicks was because the first episode is basically on the first volume, and you have a little bit of Roronoa's backstory right away in that first volume. But they do, and I was thinking, okay, that's weird that they didn't do it, because almost everything else they got straight from that first book. But however, they added it into, I think it was the 4th episode. So keep in mind, Tiger Valley, that it is still the first season. That's stuff that they could still expand on later. So I noticed that there are some things that what I'm trying to get is there are things that they might expand on later. So obviously for now, we want more, because we want to see the book that we have, being faithfully brought to life. They might do certain things out of order as well. So do keep that into consideration, since we did see that with Roronoa, that his stuff was expanded on later, whereas the book, it was, right away.
The show seems to be structured to tell you what you need to know when you need to know it.
Yeah, and that's fine, because when they finally got to Roronoa's origin story, it was very faithful to the book. It just they showed it later on versus right away. So I don't mind if they go out of order.
And they were
as long as it
smart to
makes
leave
sense.
out the reasoning on one aspect of it that I'm not going to spoil, but yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
was like,
keep that in mind. I
feel
do
like-
understand that argument too, Tiger Val, assuming that he is someone who knows the manga. I just keep that in mind that that's stuff that they can always expand on later, and if so, that's worth it, because this show seems like it's got so much potential for so much life, and especially if you know the manga, you can tell this stuff is very rich in lore. That this can go on for several seasons, much like the amount of literally hundreds of volumes there are. So, and that's a good thing. This is a big story in the very literal sense that there's always room for that. So let's give it time, my friend.
All right. Anybody else want to say anything about that before we move on?
I'm going to watch it with my dad, so I haven't watched it yet. I'll watch it next week. But just on that point, there's over 1,000 episodes of the anime. And, if those are 22-minute episodes and say you got a 44-minute live action adaptation, I mean, unless you're going to have 500 episodes, something's going to have to get cut, right? So I
always bear in mind that the original creator signed off on it. Sorry, Sissy, go ahead.
Oh, no, yeah, that's great. That should be the case.
Yeah.
I was just saying, I'll give them a little bit of grace more than I normally would. I mean, typically I like to see things adapted frame for frame. The way the Death Note anime was adapted from the manga was literally frame for frame, except for one part. But here, with so much material, they're going to have to make cuts. There's just no way around it, unless they plan on doing 50 seasons.
Yeah.
It's funny how George Lucas created Star Wars, but nobody cares about his input. Whereas these guys, it's always weird to me that they don't even want to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, no, you're right, Price.
Oh yeah, they don't. Yeah. No, go ahead.
I like that we're in this point with One Piece, that we're having this type of discussion versus how the mighty have fallen. That's discussion for the 800th time. I love having this discussion about the show, because since Caster shipped me the book, I'm already going to be on the hunt tomorrow for volumes 4, 5, and 6 and the collected edition, so I can read more. And that's how this should be. It should make you want to read the source material. It should do that, and this show is doing its job with that. So I'm really happy to be at this point in my life. It's like, man, we all forgot what it was like to have this discussion. It really is almost foreign language to an extent. But yeah, I'm really happy, and I can't wait to finish the last 3 episodes, which I'm gonna make sure tomorrow I watch at least 2 more.
Infinite Wanderer says it's odd hearing everyone reviewing One Piece after, being a fan for years. Pardon me again. Get like the hiccups and burps at the same time. Never expected it to enter the sphere. Just wish they weren't 2-3 more episodes and finished season with entering the grand line. Well, that's kind of what they're leading up to for the second season, and I can see they're truncating a lot of the story, which I'm fine with, because I just don't have the time to go through the each and every little bit that's in the manga. Which, I mean, I know fans would appreciate that, but that's what the manga and the anime are for. This is a live action, and this to me is adapted in a way that live action normally is, even in a world with CGI where we can pretty much do everything. That doesn't mean you have to. That just means you have to tell a coherent story that fits within the time frame given. And what I felt they did in this, with the season they were given, with the time they were given, they did a pretty good job of filling up everything. I did not feel like anything was filler. I felt like the show constantly had momentum going. In fact, like we were talking before the show about Garp being brought into the story before he normally would be, from what people are saying. But I see that reason, because it gives them something to keep chasing them. Right?
Yeah. That actor's terrific, by the way.
Adds that too, but it also adds momentum to them keep moving. Right? Because otherwise there's nothing chasing them. So then there's nothing to push them along. That's a little quicker than I'm sure it meanders a bit more in the original story, is what I'm saying. But that being said, because I've never actually read it or seen the other anime, I had no problems with the way the story was set up. I had very few questions afterwards, and a few people were able to kind of give me pretty quick answers to a lot of that stuff. So,
for 8 episodes, Tom, it does a marvelous job of world building.
That's what I mean.
In a short period of time.
Oh,
very,
my
very
goodness.
very
Considering you only have 8 episodes, and you know there are going to be a lot of people out there that have been experiencing the world building from the first brick for about 20-something years now, but others who don't even know what it is, they just turn it on. It does, and I think that's what's so great about this creator. Such an exceptional job within just really the first few episodes, but especially over 8. Putting by the end of the 8th episode, if you're into the characters, which should be because they're all so beautifully played, if you're into the story, if you get the excitement and exuberance of the show, when you get to that 8th one, you're already in that world. It world builds so well. You're not everybody got some people don't like it, but the people who love it know that they can't wait to get more of it because of the world building, I think, and the characterization.
Right. G-Man says the One Piece anime has over 1K episodes, but absolutely nothing happens in about 900 of them. So trimming should be easy. The anime is a trap. See, and that's the thing I've heard, G-Man. In fact, I've heard that fans and such have done edits down to what pretty much all you really need for story without any of the filler. But in that case, it almost feels like Oda was kind of working these things out between the manga and the anime, and now that he's gotten to the live action show where he kind of has limited real estate, now's the time where he's actually being judicious. Is that the word I'm looking for? With what he's putting on, and whatever's there needs to be there, and for nothing other than the reason that it has to help tell the story or build the world. Because nothing in this show feels like fat at all.
No,
you got to be careful with that too, because they tried to do that with Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Kai. They tried to cut the episode count down and trim out all the fat, and just let's say mixed results, because maybe sometimes
did they overcorrect the problem?
Yeah, I'm gonna say you got to do a delicate balance, because otherwise, if you don't have enough story for the characters, then you don't get invested. The beauty of this is the actors they have sell the characters so well. That they don't need so much of a backstory. They don't need we don't need just a ton of meandering time between them bantering to get to know them. We get enough time to get to know them just through the adventures and the few times things do slow down, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I get what you're saying, CC, and I agree. You don't want to sacrifice all the character either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some things. Sometimes the things that I feel like I know with Kai, like they said, they actually did try, and I see that in the chat. They tried to get a little closer to the manga, but some of the quote unquote filler they cut were also fan favorites. Sometimes a filler episode actually just is a fun episode that adds to the character development and delivers an enjoyable story. And if you cut it out, then all you end up with is just like the literal plot beats.
No, yeah, I totally agree. And so it's a fine balance you got to strike. But when it comes to an adaptation like this, that's what you have to do. The old man cometh sends in $5. Didn't say anything. Just sent in $5. If there's something you wanted to say, old man, just add us and we'll try and answer it in the chat. James Villanueva reminds us that the new Kylie Minogue album comes out tomorrow. Tension. I'm sure Michael's happy about that.
Yes, I'm sure he is.
Does Kylie Minogue still look nice?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh. That's good to hear.
Yes. She is aged well.
I would say so.
Midnight's Edge or Tripping Orb. Jesus Christ. Tripping Orb gifted 5 Midnight's Edge After Dark memberships. Thank you so much, Tripping Orc. That's what I meant to say. Jason Fox has been here for 11 months, almost a year, just on the cusp of. Thank you so much for the support. G-Man sends in another one. Oh, we got this one already. So this is one we got. And then we got Pinochet, who's been here for 25 months. Goddess says, as of 9/17, there are 1,076 episodes in Japan.
Wow.
There you go. Thank you
That's
for that
incredible.
info.
That's a few there.
Those are Doctor Who numbers.
Yeah, those are no rookie numbers. Jason Webster says, recommend Evil Does Not Exist by Raisuke Hamaguchi. Is this another anime? I'll have to see. It all depends on the style. See, that's my issue is with anime, is the animation style and how it looks. With something like the live action, it's a little easier for me to digest. Infinite Wanderer says the problem with anime is that it's made year-round, not seasonal, so the crew needs to pad out every single scene to have something next week. Yeah, there's that, and there's a lot of those shortcuts and stuff are what are hallmarks of some of the things that I don't like about anime. Not all anime is that way. but some of them have the similar hallmarks of the still frames, the wacky, like over the top, exaggerated.
It's just the
noises,
tropes of
emotions.
it's just the
Those
tropes of how the
noises.
style of anime works. I
Yeah.
mean, that's everything has their tropes. I mean, we kind of had we've had many good discussions about this on Toxic Tuesday,
Absolutely.
with the tropes of the action movie, or even with the tropes of the horror movie, the tropes of the comic book story. Like, it's part of the territory where you
It's just
live
not my
it or
style.
not. Yeah.
Right. I mean, growing up, and I think Klobby and I have talked about this too before, if not a few of us have, where I've said, like, growing up, I was so used to Western animation outside of Transformers and Speed Racer. Those are the only real two things you can point to and say that's actually anime. Right.
Right.
Because otherwise, we didn't have a lot of that shit growing up until you hit the age where I kind of fell out of kid stuff. Then you had like Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon and all that kind of stuff start to get the next generation ready for this, and even like Power Rangers to a point.
Yeah, Robotech was pretty big, but there weren't a lot of them though.
Yeah, that was probably the only other one I can think of. Voltron maybe, but even Voltron didn't really have a very long running series to my knowledge. I had the toys, but I don't remember watching much of a show. Yeah. See, Robotech and a few of those other shows, they were here and there, but like they were not on the main radar for me. And I was stuck in a region where I didn't have the USA Network and shit for years, so I didn't get to see a lot of the cool shit everybody else got to see and some of the other stuff.
Yeah, dude, you didn't see Stone Cold Steve Austin and beg for the crowd to give him a hell yeah?
No, the only time we had WWF back in the day, it would be on syndication, but when they took it over at like USA and all that stuff, oh no, we didn't get it anymore. Yeah, no, after like the Hulk Hogan years, I pretty much fell out.
That's
I'd say the over the top is definitely a trope that is part of some genres of anime, but in particular the still frames is really just about budget, right? I mean, just like in Hollywood, you have high budget films and low budget films and animated. Particularly with shows that have to air every single week. There's no break. It's not just 24 episodes. Sometimes it just goes, oh, hey, there's a whale. Sorry. It just goes and goes and goes, right? So it's like a soap opera. They have to cut corners every which way sometimes to just get it out.
Now, as far as like, oh, go ahead. I thought you were done.
No, but with a higher budget production, sometimes they say OVAs. Things are like the limited series, 6 episodes or 12 episodes a year. Yeah. The highly regarded ones, if they're done well, with a lot of budget behind them, then you get the real detail work and less of that still frame stuff. And in those cases, sometimes the fans will even complain. It's like, hey, you cheaped out on that episode,
See, I don't mind that kind of stuff. The more I guess you would call it complicated anime that I really dig sometimes, in fact. And I feel like Rankin and Bass either took a lot of inspiration from that and or vice versa, because you had a lot of those animators probably working on their stuff. Like you look at everything from a lot of their specials up through The Hobbit, especially, has a very anime feel about it. And then you get to Thundercats, has a very anime kind of almost feel about it too, because of the way they did their because they weren't exactly doing what you would call rotoscoping, but it was I don't know what the hell they did, but they had a really great style. I can't remember the name of the guy who designed all that shit.
I especially liked when Lion-O did the Thundercats, Thunder, with that part, whatever animation happens there is cool.
And very anime. That's what I was trying to say.
Right. It is very anime, right.
So those are like the closest to those influences I had growing up. So that's why it's really difficult for me personally to just kind of get into it, because I love animation. Because I've actually had a lot of commenters just go, oh, you're just a snob and you don't like animation and you think animation is for kids. Like, no, I never fucking said that. I said, you got to understand, I grew up on shit like Ralph Bakshi. Okay. Like I was seeing like stuff I probably shouldn't have been seeing when I was younger, like heavy metal and like the Fritz the Cat and stuff like that, so like yeah, so no, I totally have an open eye for animation. It's just
I do too, even though, and like you, I have certain animation styles I strongly detest, but that doesn't mean I won't forgive if the quality of the show makes up for it. Like my favorite Spider-Man cartoon is Spectacular Spider-Man, even though I strongly detest the animation, but the way it has the story played out. I feel like it
show.
handles that in the action. I feel like it handles those two things better than even its 90s counterpart. The only thing I think the 90s counterpart did was pretty much introduce the greater, I guess, more extended Marvel universe. But as far as Spider-Man's story and his characters, his supporting cast, I feel like that show handled it the best. And once again, that's the one I hate the animation the most. So a good story can make you forgive things like that. Kind of like when you have bad CGI, you can forgive it when there's good quality storytelling. Imagine that.
For all the Ghibli fans out there, if you haven't seen Future Boy Conan, it's kind of like a pre-Ghibli movies, but is made by the same people from 1978. And there's like a TV show from an era when, you know, animation was not where it necessarily, you know, evolved to, but the detail work that you would expect from Ghibli is there, and that's just a gorgeous.
See, I've seen some of those movies. Yeah, I've seen some of those movies. So that kind of stuff, I kind of almost is like the exception to me. Like that's what I mean. Quality over whatever is the problem to me. Always trumps it, right? Like I've seen some cool shit. Like I love that Star Wars and anime style that somebody did a couple years back. I thought that looked bitchy.
Oh yeah,
right. I can dig it if it's really well done. If it's my problem is like, especially when they started switching over to computer, and this is for almost all animation.
Well, yeah, I'm with you.
Like
there.
I can tell, like there is a sterilized look to animation now that is not like it was when it was hand drawn, and you're missing the soul of it. Like
and
there's something missing.
It's over. Sorry, no, it's overtaken anime as well. And
yeah, that's what I've heard.
As well, it's that's why I mentioned Future Boy Conan, hand drawn, but like with that Ghibli detail over a full like series. No computer animation.
And I'm not trying to shit on anything anybody likes, just so you guys know. I'm just talking about my own taste here. This, to me, when I talk about this shit, this is like me saying I like pepperoni and mushrooms on my pizza, even though I know you don't like mushrooms on yours. You know what I'm saying? Or you prefer Pizza Hut over Domino's or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's why I see this shit. That's where I don't understand these nerd community fights, and this is why I give the Snyder hose so much shit, because they just cannot fucking accept you know, that somebody doesn't like what they like.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying anime fans are like that at all. I'm just trying to say, guys, that's the reason why. And this is the more fandoms I see like that is like the Snyder Bros, the TMNT fandom. There's some in the Star Trek fandom. We've seen it recently with Star Wars. We're seeing a new resurgence in the trouble there. What you're saying, Price? Sorry.
I'm saying, no, you're right. Disney Star Wars, every time I post, and like, I'm not a huge channel, you know, I mean, some people watch my videos, but a lot of times half the people are weirdo Disney fans, and their comments are just, they like get upset that I said that I didn't like the episode. And I don't understand. It's a review. If you don't agree, go do your own review. And the way they talk about it, it's like, it's impossible that I wouldn't like Ahsoka, according to them. And I can't understand why.
It's sad, but there's a lot of that going around everywhere. There are people that cannot accept that it's just an opinion, even if you preface your remarks with, you know what? If you guys like it, that's cool. I don't. Here's why. And you cannot be more fair than that, and they still can't accept it.
No, they can't, which is weird. And Drinker brought up a great point about this unopened bar. He's like, what happens when you receive bad like food or even bad meat at a restaurant? Do you just accept and say just enjoy it?
Yeah, we've used that analogy before in a way, yeah.
And that's true. Like if I see meat that's either badly cooked or the wrong order, I'm gonna address that. And these people are all on the saddest part is a lot of these people don't even like these things as much as they boast about it. A lot of them like it just because people that they are politically opposed to or socially opposed to don't like it. So they feel like they have to be on the other end of this. Whereas guys like us, we'll say if we like something, even if it doesn't always cater to our leanings. We'll like something or we don't. And as much as I have no problems taking shots at Zack Snyder, the way that Norm Macdonald takes shots at O.J. Simpson, I would admit if I did like something. I would. As crazy as that may sound, I know a lot of people will want proof that one day, but if that proof happens, you'll get it. But until then,
you know what?
It hasn't happened as of now.
I know there's probably a couple of those Snyder bros listening and hate listening.
Yeah.
I would honestly open a conversation with them. And we almost had like a Shane 2.0 moment. I don't know anybody here who's been around long enough to remember Shane, but
no.
Okay, the short story of Shane was, this was a while back when Discovery, they were doing something on the Star Trek YouTube channel where they were broadcasting all the first episodes.
Oh, I remember this. I was just a listener. I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
Okay, I know. Go on.
So we noticed it. And we went over because we're like, holy shit, we got almost as many people watching here, and I think we actually had more people watching.
You had them on that one episode to have a
because they were on Discovery, I think, at that point or whatever. Because they had started with Star Trek and TNG and all that business down through Enterprise, and then they were doing good because they had like a couple thousand people watching for the earlier shows, and then when they got down to Discovery, there was only a few hundred watching. And I'm like, holy shit, we got just as many or more people watching our shit than are watching there. So we went and invaded their fucking chat. And they shut the chat down.
Who are these people?
The official Star Trek YouTube.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
So all of a sudden, so we're like, oh man, they shut the chat down because we had a bunch of people going STD sucks, and I'll just flood the chat. And there was a bunch of just reading off, it's not STD, it's disco. They were just going off on it and shit. And then all of a sudden they shut the chat down. So, of course, the thrill is gone. So we go back to our show, and all of a sudden about a couple of them start coming in our chat. And they're like, you guys got it shut down. And we went like, no, it's not. It's still playing. We're like, no, you can't talk in the chat. They shut it down because of your homophobic slurs. I'm like, hold up, time out, Shane. I can't remember. It was his username at that point.
Right.
I'm like, when did anybody say anything homophobic? He's like, you guys did, and you got it shut down. And this is him still talking in the chat. I'm like, all right, hold up, time out. I'm like, Shane, I'm going to give you an opportunity. So I got him to hook up with me on Twitter. I sent him the link, got him on the show.
Yep. Okay. I remember the show. I remember listening.
This is when Mecca was still on there, and she wouldn't shut the
Yeah,
fuck up.
she
So
was
I
on
literally
there.
had to, I had to kick her from the show
Out like 3
fucking
times.
5 times. And I kept telling her, all right, I'm going to give you a chance. You come in here, you be fucking civil. And she goes, and I fucking kick her right back out. So anyway, I'm sitting here. Okay, so we found out the guy's name is Shane. And I said, please point to us. Go back in the chat, because they turned the chat back on. I said, go back and you find it. You find the one homophobic slur, and I will call that individual out right here live. Couldn't do it. So we talked to Shane. We talked to Shane for about an hour. We finally got him to understand why we did not like the show. In fact, I thought we were going to talk again. We had this whole like rapport thing, and I had talked to him for a little bit afterwards on Twitter. Then the motherfucker blocked me like the next day.
I did hear that one. I remember that one.
Like, Shane, no, Shane.
Come back, Shane.
They always do that. They always do the blocking when they lost the argument and have nothing more.
Yeah, because we just explained to him exactly why it was we didn't like the show, what the problems were with it, and how it's this virtue signaling over what the show really already was beyond, and all this classic stuff we've all talked about,
Yeah.
And I mean, by the end of the discussion, he seemed to be on understanding of what we were saying, and it seemed like we were all kind of in the same boat, and he seemed like a decent guy until all of a sudden after the show, like I said, then I found out he blocked me like somewhere between then and the next day. I went to reach out to him again for a follow-up, but anyway.
I have a feeling that I know what happened. Maybe at that moment you were getting through to him, but once it ended, probably a few other weirdos like him approached him and said, how dare you associate with such scummy people? And then the next thing, in order to save face, I guess he blocked you.
No question about it.
Oh, yeah. And there's a few other Trek guys I tried to reach out to and kind of build a bridge, but they never wanted to.
Yeah, Snyder Bros.
It's a good point, though. There's so many things that are fine to debate about, but we don't have to like hate each other over. They're just not that. They're not important enough to fight and hurt anyone.
It's not even about fighting. It's just so they can at least understand your point of view and why you feel the way that you do. And I would absolutely have that engagement. And I mean this when I say anyone who's actually willing to have an open dialogue on why I feel something, whether I'm for it or against it on any of these particular franchises that I'm knowledgeable, I could have that conversation. If they name the day, place, and time, and I can align my schedule, I'll show up to that because I want people to understand. Because a lot of people kind of misunderstand the idea of having a debate It's not about always getting the other guy to say, oh my God, my mind's changed my mind on everything. You're completely right. It's not about that. It's about trying to understand why we came to the conclusions, why we got from point A to point B and how we got there. Whether you feel that way or not, and maybe you both can try to see what is ultimately the solution, maybe you can agree on. Is probably the actual debate, because we both have different sides to this, and we want to understand each other's sides and see where we can come to a mutual agreement. But people just think it's about who talks louder and shouts at the other louder and who gets yours to change your mind. And I think that's the biggest misunderstanding.
And I've done it.
This. Oh, we all have. We're all, and that's passion. That's
usually I just say shut the fuck up, but just like I did the Lofty that one time. I'm just like, just shut the fuck up for 5 minutes. Let somebody else talk. No, but anyway, Neil is right here. That's why I brought this up on screen. And this is important to point out that it's not so much that I don't think people should call it good in front of you. It's just that I think there needs to be an understanding that, yes, you can like Ahsoka, but don't pretend like it's fucking Citizen Kane or even as good as the original Star Wars, right? There's most people who are not going to agree with that. They can understand that you're going to like it. It's like, I like it, but you have to understand that Ahsoka is like McDonald's, okay? Star Wars is like a 4-star restaurant. Okay, that's where we're at in this universe. If that analogy makes sense. You can love McDonald's all fucking day long, but it's not good for you or anybody else for that matter.
That's the trick with anything, right? The stronger your take, the tougher it's going to be for you to maintain your position.
Right. But now Star Wars to me is healthy, good product. You know, you go and you get good service. Mm-hmm. It's exactly what they advertise, plus a little extra. You know, sorry, I think you were going to say something, Price.
I was just going to say that I like McDonald's more than I like Ahsoka, but go on.
No, but that's fair. But you guys, you guys get the analogy, though, right?
No, the analogy is good. But sadly, I think that even McDonald's is getting like a raw deal here.
Domino's,
greasy deal.
I mean, well, whatever you want to insert here, like bad food.
KFC.
Well, KFC used to be great. Now they're not. Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah. But yeah, Neil, that's a good point. I get what you're saying, but that's the way I feel about it. It's like I like hearing. See, when I hear somebody says I don't like something I like, the first thing I don't go is you're wrong.
Yeah,
that's what they do. It's like, no, my first thing is, oh, why not? Because I want to hear why. And maybe I can change their mind. I'm not setting out to do that. But if it's something that maybe they didn't understand or like about it, that maybe I can say, well, this is why, and maybe you just missed this part, go back and watch it and you may see it differently. You'd be surprised how different people react to that kind of an interaction than the, shit. It's on both sides of certain equations. I'm not going to say it's one side or the other in this one, but it is more on one side.
It definitely is. But here's what really irks me about. I guess we'll just call it. I hate generalizing, but I guess just so we can have a conversation on it. Is a lot of the times I don't feel like they truly mean it when they like it. It's not, as I mentioned earlier, because they are socially or politically opposed, because you don't see them get invested or talk about these things. You don't ever see them talk about the rewatch. You don't see them digging into details or having like an actual reason. Like a lot of it's just like they just like it. Or I've even heard people say, I don't know why I like it, but I just do. I've heard that, and
I know the reason why.
And I'm like, okay. And when it comes time to look back 5 years, 10 years, you can ask those same people. Not one of them will tell you that they are rewatching these things. They're gonna say, I know. Oh yeah, I learned about this from my repeat view. You don't hear that. They just, whatever's the current thing, they just want to be a part of the conversation.
That's part of it. But the other big reason is, and I think this even came up in our Shane conversation, but this is something that a lot of those fans, especially of Star Trek Discovery, for instance, had said from the get-go, is like, if you don't support this, we won't get any more.
Oh boy,
I've heard that.
That was the most common thing. And I would laugh, and I'm like, yeah, that's right. McDonald's closed when the McLean failed. I forgot.
That started in 2009, dude.
New Coke totally killed Coca-Cola.
That started in 2009. With regards to Star Trek, that was 2009 with that crap. I started hearing that crap 6 months before the Jar Jar Abrams trash came out. But if we don't support it, they won't make it anymore. Good. Oh, good.
Yeah, I know, right? And TMNT fans said the same shit, Clobby.
I'm sure
with that? What is
and
the
his
issue
most
with
cognitive dissonance bullshit I've ever heard. It's like, do you really think they're going to sit there on a multi-million to billion-dollar franchise and not try again? You're a fucking idiot.
In 2015, the Star Wars zealots were defending Force Awakens. I pissed off people, and I wasn't much of a show or anything. Not too many people knew who I was, but I remember I came back to the theater sitting through that garbage the first night, and I just put up on my Facebook thing, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, was definitely a filmed and put on and shown on movie screens.
that?
I wrote, people were mad at me for that. I didn't say a word. Just whether I liked it or not. Of course, I hated it. So I did that. Oh, the smart. There you go with the smart aleck crap. You didn't like it, huh? And you could ask Michael about this, Tom. We both, and it was right before he got a chance to see it. But because we were not very fond of it, let's say, we fought zealots for weeks and weeks coming after us. But I waited 2 days before I admitted. I waited till my show, 3 days, before I admitted what I thought about it. But I kept making vague posts like that didn't say what I thought one way or the other. And everybody was getting automatically thought, he's being smart ass. It means he hates it. Who cares if I hate it? Zealots. I learned then more than ever that the Star Wars is a religion to some people. Because I knew friends who went 10 times that first weekend in 2015. Yeah. 10 times they were bragging about it.
I was sucked in just because it was, Luke, Leia, and Han, even though they weren't technically on screen together. Yeah. I mean, I fell for and I was in the camp of, I'm fine with this because it's kind of resettling things back into the old school way of telling a story, because like or hate the prequels, that's fine. George sits there and claims all day that they're like poetry and they rhyme, except they don't. Right? And that's why I didn't have a problem with The Force Awakens being almost a retelling of the first film, because the door is open for you to take it anywhere from there, because our expectations are set up one way now. Right? Like that, I don't mind so much. The problem I had with that movie at the time was just how they took out Han Solo. And I'm like, yeah, this Death Star thing all over again is a really on the fucking nose. Like, you couldn't have come up with anything else to kind of substitute that with also still having the parallel story, and at first it was kind of like, I didn't really notice it until later on, where I talked about it not too long ago again, where I'd noticed that, like, look, that was the weird thing about Rey. Was Luke wanted to get the fuck off the planet at any cost. The only thing keeping him there was his uncle and aunt. And finally, when they were fried, he's like, well, I got nothing left here. Let's go. I want to get the fuck out of here. Rey's like, I got to go back. I got to go back. I got to get back. I don't want to go. I need to go back. I want to go stay back in the fucking shit that I was in. Like, that's what I could not understand about that character. She never wanted to go. Because that's what the hero should want to do in the story, even if they're not being a hero per se. Like with Luke, it was just, he just wanted to get the fuck out of that rut he was in, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he didn't like that day in, day out being a farmer, because that's not what he wanted to do, But yeah, anyway, I went on a tangent there.
No, it was a necessary tangent, dude. Come on.
The light bulb moment for me when I watched Force Awakens in the theater was the destruction of Alderaan, of Hosnian Prime. When I went at that exact moment, I almost felt it in the audience, like people knew exactly what was going on. It was a direct blow against the prequels for a start, but it was also destroying the past. Like that, for me, that was the moment where it was never the same. I didn't leave the theater, but I knew this wasn't, this didn't feel right.
I was pissed off the whole time, and then when Han Solo let his retarded son gut him like a punk bitch, that was the end of everything.
Yeah. Well, my problem with it is it just didn't go anywhere, right? It didn't lead up to anything. It didn't build to anything. In fact, it would have made more sense in The Last Jedi had they just had Kylo Ben kill both of his parents, so he had that on his that read on his record or whatever you want to call it. But at that point, it's still a horrible thing to do to those characters. And speaking of script writing and how it's horrible sometimes, we have Script Doctor. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
We haven't even got to a news story yet. I'm actually kind of proud of myself.
Wait, that's a good thing?
Yeah, because we have shit to talk about. Pinochet's Helicopter Tours says, I'm calling BS just like investment firms went dark on ESG. It's still there behind the scenes with the same effects. Disney isn't quitting anything. Well, thank you, Pinochet. So we're going to take a break from Super Chats for just a few moments. and get into this story because this is our main topic of the day here. Disney CEO Bob Iger vows to quiet the noise in the culture war. What is this all about here? Well,
the very war he started, he wants to quiet the noise now?
Yeah, you know, he wants to pretend he did something positive.
It's a very slippery statement, quiet the noise. What is he even saying?
Yeah, Nothing. What does he mean by that? That's a good point. That's a very good point, Price. Let's read this. Walt Disney Company. Whoa, now everybody's here. We got Scribe Light here too.
We got the boys here now. It's on like Donkey Kong.
Howdy, hey.
How's it going? We're just about to start reading this article here, so your timing is perfect. Disney CEO Bob Iger claims he's going to quiet the culture wars, and according to this article, CEO Bob Iger is promising to lower the temperature after the company stepped deep into the culture wars under his predecessors and angered many conservatives. Well,
Wait a second. Wait, Bob Chapek, is that you?
Yeah. Wait, what? I'm behind. I'm not even sure I'm hearing this right. Needham and Company analyst Laura Martin wrote in a report released Wednesday that Iger told investors the day before his primary goal is to quiet the noise because culture wars are bad for business. Now, as was just pointed out, what does quiet the noise mean? That's a good question. The message was one of Needham's key takeaways from the Disney 120-person investor event at Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida on Tuesday, when the company announced plans to nearly double its investments in amusement parks and cruises to $60 billion over the next decade. Iger's vow comes after Disney has been embroiled in a number of controversies in recent years, to say the least. He returned as CEO in November 2022 after previously leading the entertainment giant from 2005 to 2020. Disney Bob Iger, that's something else. Disney sparked a public feud with Republicans last year under former CEO Bob Chapek. Bullshit! Started before him. When the company took a stand against a Florida bill that prohibits teachers from providing instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity in kindergarten through third grade classrooms, or at least we could say Bob Iger was totally in favor of them getting involved, let's say. Florida's HB 1557, also known as the Don't Say Gay bill, should never have passed and should never have been signed into law. The company said in a statement in March 2022, our goal as a company is for this law to be repealed by the legislation or struck down in the courts, and we remain committed to supporting the national and state organizations working to achieve that. We're dedicated to standing up for the rights and safety of LGBTQ plus members of the Disney family, as well as the LGBTQ plus community in Florida and across the country.
All right. I want to add real quick. This article already has it wrong with the Don't Say Gay bill. That's a fictional misinformational statement. It's the parental rights bill. I know you guys don't want to admit that because that doesn't push their narrative.
And this even Fox, at least they put it in quotations, but yeah.
It's I hate it because it just goes to show you like how powerful these news outlets are, that they could lie up and down about something and the word gets around, people just buy into it. It's the parental rights bill.
Well, as we know, that launched the feud between DeSantis and Chapek, and in April, Disney sued DeSantis and other Florida officials over losing that status with Greedy Creek. Both sides have been fighting each other in court ever since. Well, they forget to, I think that they lost one major point of that, but yeah. Disney did not immediately respond to Fox News Business request for comments on Iger's remarks to investors. So that kind of makes it even questionable there what he meant by quiet the noise.
Well, the journalist buried the lead. They didn't even talk about quiet the noise. They talked about everything else but that quote.
Yeah, because I wonder how much there really was to that quote.
Sounds like pillow talk to me. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, without something more specific, it's like to quiet the noise. It's just like, well, does that mean just make people stop talking about it?
Exactly.
Or does that mean actually taking action to try to right the wrongs that caused it in the first place? I doubt it'll be the latter. I think it's just going to be a change in messaging or whatever.
Yeah. Stop talking about politics in our advertisements of shows and whatnot, or something of that nature.
Because
this person just heard a quote and then was like, okay, that's all I got. Now what? Okay, let's talk about the last 2-year history of Disney because there's nothing else I have to pad out this article. What a piece of crap reporting.
I was going to say, wasn't it like late last year? I want to say Iger was saying something along the lines of, we're not going to stop it, but we need to find a way to put it in that calls less attention to it in so many words. I can't remember exactly how he put it. but he said something along those lines.
Yeah,
I remember it was something slippery that on one hand he's saying that they have to tell good stories and be entertaining first of all, but then he's like, but we can't stop this inclusion. I mean, we can't stop what we've started or whatever it is, something along those lines. Like it's a duplicitous comment. Like on one hand they want to focus on entertainment, but they can't stop that thing that they're doing.
Well, I've heard this exact same notion just recently. I listened to this panel discussion with these DEI proponents and consultants and everything. And really the message right now is to change the language being used, to change the narrative, maintain the infrastructure of what it is that is driving the ideology, but it's all about just narrative control. That's all it is. It's just about the packaging now. So this sounds more like media manipulation, narrative crafting, and just trying to make people forget the past. And we're just going to move on and sort of keep everything going on internally, but just not be so loud about it, or just make sure we have more fluff piece articles going out, sort of giving us cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is also, like you said, guys, I mean, this doesn't really tell us much of anything on this quote. No. I mean, I'd like to see the full quote in context. But they don't really seem to have that here, and everybody else is using this as the source for the story, from what I could find. So
yeah, it seems that there's not too much to add to it. Yeah, you could say all you want that culture wars are bad for business, but your actions are always going to be the song that sings. So prove it, Iger. Otherwise, your ass is full of more shit than your mouth is.
I read that as dissenting opinion
here. Sorry, CC. I was gonna say I don't have the quote here, but the way Daily Mail is writing it is that was in response to him wading into politics with the parental rights issue. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I read that as quieting dissenting opinions. At least that's how I perceived it when I read it.
Exactly.
It's one out of two things. Either all of his detractors, he's going to silence them in some interesting way, or maybe, and I'll believe it when I see it, he'll tell their PR people that if there's a project that's really heavily leaning into identity politics, not to talk about it so much while promoting it, but the content won't change. They'll just talk about it less. So it's either this or that.
Yeah, you wouldn't be too impressed with any more of these I'm finding here script, because they're all about the same. They are almost literally verbatim.
Is there any... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Scribe.
I was going to ask, and Tom probably has a better idea than this anybody else. Is there any known vocal opposition within Disney to the agenda? Because I'm trying to think of like how you could interpret that statement to say like maybe he'll just do a purge of those that would be, being albatrosses around people's necks for this whole thing. I don't know.
I mean, Script might be able to back this up or deny it, but or at least knock it down, however you want to put it. But my understanding is at least the few people that I have gotten to speak to that are on, let's say, the non-left side or woke side of this equation, they're definitely afraid to speak up, especially after Gina Carano. That was like, I got like 2 or 3 messages from folks, and one of them I can say had been with Lucasfilm. I can't say how long, but I can say they were with Lucasfilm before the sale, and they were scared shitless to lose their jobs if they said anything that went against the woke. And you were about to say, Script. I'm sorry.
No, like that's the thing. It's the way the industry has gone into a certain direction, led by Disney. It has had a ripple effect negatively on the old school diverse voices that are out there, where you had a lot of people on a spectrum of the left and right who kind of kept politics to themselves. And if they were doing something dramatic, they'd be like, okay, if I'm on the right, this is the type of questions I want to ask. And then I have to go across the aisle and find out, well, what's the questions they would ask? How can I create drama out of that? How can I put that in there? Nobody really cared because they're only interested in money. But at some point around between 2009 and 2012, money no longer mattered. And that was what's weird. And then when money no longer mattered, and they were able to say, well, we want this type of direction for our stories. And they clouded it around a very logical argument, which is that, hey, the United States is a melting pot of people. We should make sure that our shows reflect that a little bit. That's your first step. And nobody had anything wrong with that, not even audiences. But there's a big shift a few years later where instead of advertising a great, fun show, they started treating certain members of the production, be it actors, directors, writers, kind of like circus freaks. Like, hey, look at that.
Yep.
We got a writer that identifies as another gender that never existed 2 weeks ago. That's not a selling point. Nobody cares.
No, you're 100% right. And I used to make that point all the time about Star Trek Discovery and such. And yeah.
And if you were to bring it up, or at least say, well, why are we talking? Listen, it's great that this person is getting a job doing a show. Shouldn't we be talking about the things that got him to this position? And they'll say they are. Well, them being of that particular whatever isn't part of the metric of how this industry works. And they're saying, like, listen, if he's a good writer or she's a good writer, it's a good writer. Put that forward, or put that out there. That's what we want. It's like, from groundbreaking, this person won these awards, they won these contests, whatever, for their script, for this show. It's a hot script, a hot number. The hot script and hot number, the hot actor and all that stuff is no longer part of the marketing equation in the industry as it once used to be. It's now the DEI stuff. And
Which
the weird
check
part
marks,
is that in many meetings, you will never be told to your face, if you don't fit those things, that's the reason why they're not hiring you. They will always, because again, nobody in Hollywood wants to make an enemy of anybody. And you never know, the person that you say no to today might end up being your boss tomorrow. Like, that's how it is. So it's always very politically worded to keep things well, but behind the scenes in tightly knit groups, they become pretty honest about why they didn't do that. And it's not anything actually offensive with regards to the person. It's basically like, well, if I'm the one that hired that person, knowing that there's another person who's, a minority or in some sort of protected class, I'm going to be facing the brunt of that for making that decision. And I don't want to do that because as important as money is in Hollywood, which it is very, the real currency is reputation. And that's fueled by gossip, whether it be positive or negative.
Yeah, and we got a kind of a peek into what it's like dealing with this kind of shit when we got the Walter Mosley story, for instance.
Well, he just walked. I mean, that was
I know, but we got an idea of just how hostile these environments are, is my point. Right? To the point where somebody like him was like, fuck this shit, I'm out. And like he said, he got that stupid phone call from HR instead of actually getting a phone call from Kurtzman or Kiva Goldsman. And they're like, we're calling you to let you know that you made some people in the writer's room feel uncomfortable. And he's like, why? And they're like, because you use the N-word. And he's like, well, I am the N-word in the writer's room. And he's like, who's offended? And they're like, well, we can't say that, but they were offended, and they would wish that you wouldn't use that terminology anymore, or something like that. And then so he went to the press and told them his side of the story, leaving out who, what, where, and all that kind of business. CBS came and took credit for that shit. And it's like, you dumb shits, you don't even see what the hell you just did, do you? You just made yourself out to be racist. Kind of like with Disney, right? I mean, at the end of the day, they've done nothing but prove how racist they are and so on through all this bullshit, because we saw what they did to Finn in the posters. We know what they did to his character. Christ, you even have another situation where they introduce a secondary black character in this universe, and guess what? They had to shrink the universe so much that of course she's Lando's daughter. They can't think beyond their own nose and in front of their face, and how fucking simplistic that is. It's like, we got another black.
They deleted the dialogue where she says she's his daughter, so now you don't even know.
It's still implied, but yeah.
Right. Now it looks like he's hitting on her.
I'd rather take that version of it, honestly, because look, I don't give a fuck how old Grandpa Lando is. He could probably still get it.
Mobility.
Hello, what?
Oh yeah, he could. Yeah. It's like William Shatner.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I agree. So let's get through these super chats because we got one more story. I'm glad Script is here for this one. Elf says, Tom, I want you to watch Attack on Titan. 95 episodes of great storytelling. The last episode coming later this year, and filler episodes are separate from the main story. I may check into that one. I'll have to see. I mean, there's a short list of animes that are ones that I would consider. Tiger Valley says another cool thing about Netflix OP is the Easter eggs for hardcore fans, from lore concept art to events that happen current day. Homework done right. Okay. I didn't know that and not realize that. That's good to know. Jason Webster says my favorite anime feature is Ghost in the Shell. I have that and I haven't watched it yet.
Standalone Complex series is great as well.
You haven't seen Ghost in the Shell?
I have it, but I just never actually. I think I watched it years ago.
Okay.
I had an ex-girlfriend who was like super into like anime and the porny style anime. What the hell's it called?
I just think of it. Hentai. Yeah, I think of it in the same category as like Akira for like must see watching. Just even if you're not an anime.
I've seen that. Like
yeah.
But I mean, she used to watch it all the fucking time. So half the time I didn't know what the fuck she was watching. Sometimes I would watch stuff, but I mean, I think I've seen it. So, but I do have it on 4K Blu-ray. I just haven't cracked it open yet. SpartanBot lets us know the good news that Gary's video is back up and strike was removed. Yay! Oops, I didn't mean to hit that.
Good. It's about time,
guys. Indeed.
Yeah.
Do we know who struck it in the first place?
I know one of the guys. He goes by some username like Dragon Age. He put it right out in the open. He's like, because this is when Gary got the strike. He put hey guys, look, our mass campaign to get him struck worked. Now we got to do it to his other videos. His Dragon Age 2 FTW is his username. Yeah,
I thought it was a company. I thought it was one of the studios or something.
Oh no,
that's what I was wondering. Or whatever they usually like to hide under the.
You mean the Twitter user Dragon Age?
Yeah, Dragon Age 2 FTW wrote, "All right, boys, time to mass report other videos of it. Send him back to whatever fast food job he crawled out of."
That guy has been a headache. I mean, I remember years ago he would always bother me on Twitter.
Yeah. Big time loser.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't.
At least Gary's got his video back, and that is fantastic news. So
yeah. I was gonna say I didn't know all that information. Thank you for the update, Nick.
Yes, sir.
All right, there we go. Thank you, SpartanBot, also for the update. We got, let's see here, Goddess of Whim, who says, "I've gotten to a point where I ignore things I don't care about and leave it for those who enjoy it." Yeah, that's kind of where I am with like Ahsoka and stuff nowadays. Mikey's in the house and he says Zack Snyder is better than Mecha plus Shane. LOL. You were listening, probably, Mikey. That was the most entertaining Midnight's Edge After Dark ever.
I remember listening. I was listening to that in my car eating McDonald's breakfast, thinking, "Wow, this is actually happening." And I thought I was actually like you, Tom, hoping for maybe a good follow-up conversation. So it bums me out to know that how it played out is the guy blocked you. Like, come on, dude.
That's typical.
You went on stream, not camera, on stream, because I don't think he showed his face at the time. And
no, I don't think
you act like everything is fine. And it's just like if you really didn't have the guts, you should have a follow-up. You should just never came on to begin, because he ultimately kind of wasted your guys' what looked to be a productive conversation when it ended.
Yeah, I thought we ended on good terms, but
so
yeah.
did I.
Gabriel Knight says Ahsoka more like asshole caca. Oh. Yes, indeed. Mech 1164 says Ahsoka is gas station sushi. Oh,
wow.
That's bad. Jason Webster says, yeah, that's a better analogy than the McDonald's. Jason Webster says Ahsoka is the Diet Coke of Star Wars. Oh, she's not even that good.
No.
Not even close. Not even close. I wouldn't even say the new Coke, because the new Coke actually had fans. Yeah. Brado Jacko says ban ESG and Iger, or it is all another lie. Well,
good luck.
Yeah, that's why I said
already
another terminology. Yep. Hey, we got Camelbot Killer in the house who says, "Script, do you think Dave Filoni replacing everything George did with Star Wars like the ancient pharaohs did with the previous dynasty? Dave equals Star Wars guru."
Do I think Dave Filoni doing that is the same as the ancient pharaohs? I think it's more like Napoleon shooting the face off of the Sphinx.
There you go.
Yeah, I see both analogies here, I guess. But yeah, I mean, Filoni wishes he was George Lucas.
Yeah, that's the truth. He wishes he wishes Star Wars was his, and now that he's in a position, he can make it his, and it's terrible.
I don't know where the interview is, but there is an interview where they're asking him if he's a Jedi, and he's like, "I'm no Jedi." Like he basically says that he's a Sith.
Oh,
He-
Camel
It's
Bug.
not only
he
that.
is.
There's been a number of little
Mm.
mistakes that George Lucas has made within his own EU prior to Dave Filoni coming up there. One of the egregious ones would be the Jedi Oath that has in there's no emotion, there's only the Force. And so many people who have been writing Star Wars after that oath has been done have been taking it so literally to the point where you're like, well, why is Obi-Wan emotional? Why is Yoda got some emotion? Why does
Right.
Luke have emotion? But the Force, the Jedi are supposed to have zero emotion. And now we're seeing a bunch of Jedi in Ahsoka with zero emotion. And it's like, wow, these are horribly boring people.
Because
It's
he's turning them
because-
into himself.
Yeah, but that's the thing. There is so much extra stuff added into Star Wars that didn't need to be added into, that ended up
Yeah.
doing damage. And a person like
Yeah.
Filoni has proven how much when you take that stuff too literally, or you try to take all of it for yourself, how terrible it can actually do to the franchise. Someone on Twitter shared a video where Filoni's talking about Darth Maul and the legs, and I think one of Lucas's daughters was in there and had to correct Filoni, saying that it wasn't his idea. They got the idea from the original EU.
Yes.
And it's just showcases that Filoni doesn't come up with ideas at all.
Well, you know what Jedi stands for now.
No idea.
Justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Oh yes.
Whoa.
That's right.
I didn't come up with that by myself. That was
That's
an
right.
attempt to try to modify the whole DEI philosophy about 2 years ago, until a Scientific American article came out and said,
I saw
"Hey
that.
guys, you might not want to use that. It's a bit too corporate. Kind of refers to a weird cult that collects kids and things." And then they stopped using it. And I'm like, I think they didn't stop using it. I think that's what Jedi actually means now in the Star Wars universe.
Well, not only that, like a script is right. Like, look, at the end of the day, you can love the prequels, they're fine, but George is really doing two things with the prequels. He's advertising and showing off what ILM could do.
Yep.
And he even says that in all the making of it, so you can't even deny it. And two, that man is working out some shit. Okay. I am not kidding. That man is working out some personal shit. Script and I have had this conversation where you can directly parallel the prequels to him dealing with how him and Marsha broke up.
Mm.
And the whole fucking thing is kind of just mired in that, unfortunately. So whatever the original plan was went out the window years ago, and he is working this emotional baggage out in the prequels. Right? This whole idea that it's this woman that is unattainable at first, but then he gets her, but at the cost of losing her. The whole thing is just like his wife. If you read the story of how he met his wife, why he married her, how it all went down, what everything was all about, it is a direct parallel of the prequels. Because at the time he met her, she was seen in the industry as a phenom editor. Right? She is the one who was editing for like Scorsese and shit. He was just George made THX 1138 nobody. So he's like, I cannot do any better. That was his exact terms as to why he fucking married her. And then he turned around and his whole idea was he was so fucking hung up on her supposedly cheating with other guys because he had heard that like Francis Ford Coppola and Scorsese and a few others had hit on her. And this is no joke. That he created Industrial Light and Magic's or not Industrial Light and Magic, but the whole edit droid system and all that stuff at Lucasfilm so that she could work from home. So she couldn't go anywhere. So that she had no excuse but to work from home. She had everything she needed to work right there at the ranch. And of course, they tried to adopt some children to save the marriage, and that didn't work either. So like the whole thing still fell apart at the end. He built this whole thing to try and save his marriage and save his wife and keep her there. And at the end, he lost her. And he was stuck with it all, basically. He was stuck with the legacy of movies he didn't really want to be baggaged with.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It was exactly what I'm saying. And that's what the fucking prequels are, aren't they? They're a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're exactly what Anakin is trying to do. He's trying not to lose her at the expense of losing her.
So what does killing the younglings mean?
You can take that in a lot of different ways, my friend.
Did sell Star Wars.
Killing the future? I mean...
Oy.
Well, with science now, George has real kids.
Oh,
Okay, I shouldn't go there. I'm just
it was
kidding.
the midichlorians that did
I
it.
wouldn't have said that, but his adopted kids are all adults now anyway, so whatever. They're not kids anyway. So I'm not being that mean. They didn't want nothing to do with Star Wars. Otherwise, I'm sure he would have given it to them.
Yeah.
Why didn't they?
I don't know. I think they had, did they have a boy and a girl adopted script? I can't remember.
Yes, they
I
have
know they-
one son and 2 daughters.
Doesn't
well,
the kid
technically-
appear as a youngling in Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah, nobody cares about that.
yeah.
That's nepotism stuff.
But they didn't want nothing to
technically,
do with it.
Marcia and George have their only one daughter that they share custody for that they adopted together, and George adopted
Right.
2 other kids after their divorce.
And then now he has a biological child.
Now he has a daughter with his current wife. Yes.
So unless she turns around and goes, Daddy, I want to make Star Wars, he's going to be like, oh, shit.
Too late, kid.
Oh, let me write some
Too late.
checks. I didn't need another yacht.
I don't think he owns a yacht.
Yeah, probably not. He is.
But he could.
We're gonna find out when he dies. Like he didn't spend anything.
No. Yeah, he didn't spend
Like you're gonna find out when he because there's so many stories about how much of a stickler he was for supposedly he's still wearing the same fucking clothes. Here's a shit. He never buys anything expensive. He never goes out. The only thing I've ever heard he spends money on is when he gets his hair done. That's what I've heard.
He spends money making movies for his private collection.
Well, that, yes.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, he'll
I
spend
want to
money
see
on
those.
movies.
You'll never see them.
I really want to
think
see
it's
Be
those.
destroyed once he dies.
I wonder what those are.
Yeah.
Just
Star porn?
No.
No,
world's most
No
expensive
underwear in
porn.
space.
It's like high budget porn. It's like the most expensive.
No,
shit.
no, no.
There's
I know what he's
another
doing.
Star Wars with the hardcore scenes that were all.
I know what he's doing. He's remaking all of the classics because he thinks he can do it better. So you got George Lucas's Godfather, George Lucas is Gone with the Wind, George
Yeah.
Lucas is this and that.
Better.
Yeah, that's what I do. If I had
You know the one that
unlimited
really he would
funds,
want
yeah.
to do? You know the one that he would really want to do, and this is no joke? Apocalypse Now.
Oh,
Because that
yeah.
got taken away from him.
Mm.
That was kind of one of the reasons why him and Francis had a big kind of like whatever deal because he repped that for years with what's his face? Milius. John Milius.
John Milius, yeah.
Yeah, and at the last minute, Francis decided he was going to direct it or whatever. So yeah, of course,
Mm.
Francis paid the price for that shit. That was almost like karma coming back to bite him in the ass for that. At the end of the day. Yeah, George Lucas was gonna direct Apocalypse Now, but he never did.
Wow.
I think it was better with Coppola.
Oh, probably. Not only that, I mean, that movie probably would have killed George. Like
Yeah.
Star Wars
Yeah.
almost killed him. Like that would have killed him. Because it damn near killed Francis. So, and Martin Sheen. Martin Sheen had a fucking heart attack during the making of it, didn't he? Like
Yep.
cocaine-induced
Yeah.
heart attack or some shit.
Yeah.
And cut up his hand and everything.
Yeah, that scene where that scene, that's all him just fucking around, and because they couldn't get him to shoot any actual footage because he was so fucked up.
Yep.
And he just started rolling the camera on him, and he was just doing that shit. Like that's just him doing shit. It's weird. But it's some fucked up movie making, man.
Yeah.
Camelbot then comes in to say here, it seems to me that Dave is trying to change everything George set up, act like he knows more than George, narcissist who wants to praise. Creepy. Yeah, no, totally. He thinks he's the beginning and whatever, and he's doing it. Because we know George has never been a big fan of that Ahsoka character. Yeah. Alex Kurtzman is an unemployable little bitch, says, could the WGA and or actor strike go to next year? Well, script. I thought I had heard that there had been some progress. Has there been, or is that just media speak?
Nope, there's progress as far as I know, because I'm getting 2 conflicting reports in. They're still in negotiations today. This is day 2 of their new negotiation stuff. They're either still in or they just left because it's only 5:30 there. So I'm pretty sure they're probably trying to wrap up or what have you. And if we get word probably later tonight or tomorrow morning that they're either going back or a deal has been offered that is going to be presented to the WGA, that's a good sign. There's been a lot of pressure on the studio heads from their investors to get this done because their investors are the ones losing money as stocks have been declining across the board for all the studios. 4 of the heads, head of Netflix, Warner Brothers, Disney, and Paramount. Oh no, and then Universal, not Paramount. Those 4 met yesterday. I don't know who's in the meeting today, but I'm assuming it would probably include someone from Universal and Paramount this time around to sort of hammer things out and see what is happening. It's very interesting. The only stuff what we can say with certainty is that when you take a look at the initial counter offers done back in May, followed up with the second set of offers done in August, the studios bent on a number of things. In fact, they bent so much that a sizable portion of the media coverage and some of the people in the unions thought this was a great deal. But no, that's it had a whole bunch of loopholes, which I've explained on Midnight's Edge in the morning. So if those get plugged from this progress, and the language in the contract is solid to the point where it could benefit the writers for what they want, then I would be very surprised if this doesn't get ratified before the end of the month. But it all depends on if that is actually happening. So we'll have to wait and see for now.
You guys will go back and work just in time for your Christmas vacation.
Yeah, pretty much. And I also recently got the updated version of the unemployment bill that the Senate has passed, and it specifically stipulates that it has to be a lockout by the actions of the employer and not the employee, which means that you cannot walk for the sake of walking, going on strike, unless there is a possible contract dispute and the contract is not being reviewed or entertained for negotiations by the employer, which means that so long as the employer wants to stay in the room and talk about the contract, you cannot qualify for unemployment. If they leave the room, or if the contract ends up becoming expired and the studios or the employer does not want to come in with another offer or entertain an offer, you have to be on strike a minimum of 2 weeks to qualify. And the other aspect too, based on the lockout terminology and also on the taxes, is that as if you want to qualify, you also have to pay in to the unemployment insurance program in order to receive benefits. So a lot of writers have their own companies that are hired out to them. They don't pay EI. They would not qualify for it. So it's actually a far more competent bill than I was ever expecting.
Wow, interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the update. And Jason Webster says Bob Iger, Ryan Johnson, Dave Filoni, and Pablo Hidalgo are the 4 horsemen of the Disney apocalypse. Yeah, can't argue with that. Don't forget Kathy, but yeah, she cannot go unscathed. Waltman 4 says it's funny about the announcement of Rupert Murdoch stepping down from Fox News. I heard about this. Happened in the wee early morning hours where no one will notice. It's been pretty prominently talked about during the day. If they would have wanted to bury this, they would have reported it like on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, his sons have run that forever.
Like 180 anyway. Years old anyway. So
his sons have been running that forever anyways.
Yeah.
He's like 100 years old.
It's more of official than anything.
I got to split everybody. Appreciate the invite,
yes, that's right.
Tom.
Thank you so much, Scribe, for being here. We'll be wrapping up here pretty soon, but we have one more story to get to. But
I got a show at the top of the hour in case anybody wants to come watch a TED Excellence with me. But over at my channel. Yeah, tonight it's some kind of the presentation was had a warning on it from TEDx itself saying, "Do not take this presentation as medical advice." And when I see something like that, I have to go like, "Oh, well, okay." And the subject is why you shouldn't lift weights. Or by a guy on the stage who is like buff. So I'm like, well, how did you get buff without lifting weight? Oh, wait, where are we going? Anyway, we'll find out tonight in about 15 minutes. So everybody have a good evening, and I'll talk to you guys later.
See you later.
Bye.
Take care. But yeah, anybody got anything to say about Rupert leaving? I mean, it's kind of been in the cards for a while. Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, I don't think
he's old, right?
Yeah,
he's like 180 years old. I'm not kidding. Like, yeah. He's like the real life Mr. Burns. He just won't die.
Well said.
He's got dust for blood, but he's still pumping, you know.
Does he have a Smithers?
Yeah, probably. An Australian one. That's right, Sadie. Then we got Corrine who says she had an, you know what? George X, Anakin killing youngs. I'm trying to remember. Do I remember this? Wasn't his baby though, was it? I don't know. I'd have to look into that one. Jason Webster says Marsha. That's who. Script didn't pipe in there, so I don't know if he knows about that or not either. Because that's
going right now.
About Marsha having something to do with a baby that we can't say on YouTube. That I can't believe she actually got into a super chat.
I'm still lost. I have no clue what the heck you're talking about.
I've never heard of this before. Did this really happen?
What?
I just hear Sadie's chipping in.
Sorry. This.
If you believe this, there we go. Sadie has something to say about
it. She's got to go out now.
Is this a real story though?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't remember.
You're talking about like McCormick? What's her name?
Marsha
Lucas. They're saying that she unloaded a package.
There you go. Thank you.
I only know that she couldn't conceive. I never heard of anything about that.
I wasn't sure if it was her or his fault, but yeah.
No, the reason they adopted is that she wasn't able to conceive.
Okay.
Or together they weren't able to conceive. But I'm guessing with Lucas having a biological daughter now with his current wife, it was possibly an incompatibility.
We all know that was probably helped along with science, but anyway.
Yeah.
Considering their age, but anyhow. We're not going to get into all that business, but
I don't know about that. I mean, he already had his kids. He didn't need any more.
Yeah. Unless she did with somebody else later on. I don't know about that's the first. Unless you're just positing that. I don't know. I don't think they would have, because that was the whole thing. They tried for years to have their own kids. So
yeah, I mean, George doesn't have 50 secret kids like Elvis.
Right?
No, he doesn't.
Or Arnold Schwarzenegger even. But here's one last story I wanted to get to before the show's over. DC lands permanent home at Warner Brothers Studios, Leviston. How do you say that? Leavesden?
It's it's either Leavesden or it's usually Leavesden, because I've been there a couple of times.
Okay.
Some people do like Leavesden because they also sometimes in the UK, and I don't know why they say Leicester as Leicester, or no, sorry, they say Leicester as Leicester, and I'm like, it's Leicester, but okay, sure.
Okay, so Discovery has put their primary hub of DC Studios in UK based TV film, and so this means now does this mean they're going to be able to start doing stuff without the union stuff, or no?
No, this is just their indoor. This is the production. This is filming. Okay. This is expanding their studio lots for special effects and indoor controlled environments. Right. It's a big area for those that don't know. I think it's like an hour northwest of London, maybe less than that, depending on traffic. It's a nice big area. Like it's huge, and it's got some really cool studio space out there. And I would assume that the reason that they're expanding this is probably to facilitate some of the more elaborate practical stunts and special effects they want to do in camera on the studio lot. Because again, if you're doing it as like DC homes, it's like, okay, so if this is going to be DC home, anything that's going to be shot indoors is going to be using the studio space, and then anything that requires location will be probably a short plane ride over the water east to any of the other countries with some decent tax credits and whatnot as well.
Isn't this a big blow for Hollywood though? Like that for California?
No, a lot of stuff in California. Almost nothing is shot in California. I mean,
I know.
Deals are mostly made in California. All the production and stuff.
I guess what we're asking is what is the benefit of having this in the UK as opposed to the US?
Cheaper. Well, I mean, not necessarily in the US, but in California, it's way cheaper in the UK. A lot of the crews, and this is not really widely known, but a lot of the crews, some of the best crews in the industry, are in Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom. And there's some great crews, definitely stateside, but there's a lot of them that they live in those countries, and they come to California to work on certain stuff that's done, usually like daytime television that is shot there locally. Couple of late night shows, but most of them, they usually, because so much is filmed outside of the United States, they hire crews locally. A lot of IATSE unions are scattered across the world, and some of them are their offices in California, but yeah, they're all over the place. So to this thing here, UK crews and the access they have is fantastic, and it also saves the crews on traveling expenses as well. But UK also has some very beneficial tax credits for Hollywood productions. Some of them are pretty good. The stuff that Value Renegade has been reporting has been in the ballpark of what's typically on the low end when it comes to the tax credits that you can qualify for in the UK. So I'm just wondering if there's probably some other subsidiaries under the productions that are using as well to roll over, and that he or Jonas will find in the near future. But yeah, you can get a lot of advantage from the locals out there to shoot. Warner Brothers has been filming on those lots for many years. They've also, of course, historically rented out Pinewood for a number of years, but now they've got their own property, and I think this will probably be where they shoot a lot of their interiors, closed off sets and whatnot for the foreseeable future. It's a good investment for them. And it's also going to be a nice little boost to the UK economy.
All right. Well, thank you for the update on that. I didn't know if it was really anything to get too excited for, but I know we've talked about it for some time.
I mean, it's not going to be like their offices. They're going to have offices there, but it's not going to be everybody who works for DC Studios is going to be living over there.
No, I didn't say that either, but I'm just saying, like,
I would assume the goal would be that they are constantly going to be using that for their DC films production. And anytime there's like a gap between films, they'll be renting it out to smaller stuff locally to maintain their cash flow. But it's always going to be this is going to be their home, the place where they can always rely on to go shoot these types of movies, and make possibly television series for the next several years. I mean,
it seems like they're taking jobs that could have been in California, but now they're going to be in the UK, although nobody's really saying it.
Well, they would never be shooting in California anyway, so that's false. If anything, they'd probably shoot in maybe Atlanta,
right? Atlanta
or Vancouver in British Columbia, or parts of Toronto, or some of the Maritimes, or perhaps in New Zealand or Australia. The reason being is that since Schwarzenegger kind of left California as governor, expenses to shoot in California have skyrocketed. So there hasn't been really much domestic shooting for big productions in California, really, since that change in leadership, especially with Newsom involved. Even a handful of the stuff that was done for Shang-Chi was done at the bare minimum that they could do locally in California because the rates were just so high. And that's
they
why
still have reality in California, reality shows, but I think that's about it.
Yeah, and reality shows only require basically location permits because they don't build anything for that.
Right.
And they don't own, and unless it's the property that they already own from decades past, they don't tend to actually need to pay anything for rent, so to speak. They can pay themselves for rent. But yeah, I mean, everybody I know that's out in LA, unless they're doing like a talk show or something really local, or maybe doing a studio pilot that might end up being moved to another country if it gets picked up, it's rarely is anything actually really being shot in comparison to the rest of the world. It's primarily like Atlanta right now. There was talks of things moving out to New Mexico and Florida, but given some of the little political changes that have been occurring over the last couple of years, I think some of those deals have been pulled. And so
Atlanta has been big for years because they gave them a lot of credits to film there.
Oh man, they had fantastic amount of credits up there. So much so that when they were shooting out Swamp Thing out there, they ended up making some money, and then they overspent with their production to build an artificial swamp, and realized that they didn't do the math properly and ended up corrupting their own production because they got way ahead of themselves, which is unfortunate because the start of that series was not bad. Did fall off a cliff towards the end there.
All right, let's see what else we got here. We got well, this is one. Marcia had a daughter with her second husband. So yeah, either that was helped along with science, and or it was George that was the problem to begin with. Maybe he had a narrow urethra.
propane and propane accessories.
Somebody got that reference. Urethra. But yeah, we've exhausted the topics, I think.
We have.
I was thinking of going to see the Expendables 4, but it didn't seem like anybody was all that interested in it. So
I'm in the same boat.
I want to be, and I will see it.
I just
but
watched
it's
the first
definitely
three.
not as immediate. It's definitely not as immediate, which is crazy because obviously we covered on Toxic Tuesday. But dude, yeah, rewatching that first movie, it's so much better than I remember. Like I enjoyed it then, but I enjoyed it so much more now.
You know why I didn't go? Because we wouldn't be having a show right now. I'd be just getting back here in maybe like an hour from now, half hour, whatever from now, maybe around now.
Mm-hmm.
I liked your take on the first three, though. That they will stand the test of time. They're just good old school action flicks.
I didn't like that they put Statham at the top. So you know what that tells me? Sly is going to be shoved to the back now. And I could tell by the one trailer that they got Jason Statham and Megan Fox is the main.
She has no place being involved in those movies.
Aren't they setting up that Expendables thing with her and a couple of?
I don't know. I mean,
I thought they were. It was a female version of the Expendables.
That with
Expendables, yeah.
I'm trying to think here. Wasn't that with that Kristanna Loken girl was a TX, I think, from T3? I think.
Oh, Kristanna Loken, yeah.
Yes. And I think they were going to bring back Ronda Rousey's character or something like that. It was supposed to be a direct.
Ronda Rousey made sense. I could buy Ronda Rousey.
She's a horrible actress in that movie.
She probably is. No, I'm not going to dispute that. But as far as like,
at least she can carry a gun.
Carrying a gun and actually fighting, I can buy that with Ronda Rousey.
Her acting is cringe as fucking Expendables 3, though.
And probably is.
You've never seen Expendables 3?
I haven't seen it since I saw it right when it initially came out on streaming.
She literally has like I think 5 lines in the whole movie because she's obviously not that good of an actress.
Like, really that's when around the time they were capitalizing on her success. I remember they utilized her for WWF at the time too. That's all fine and dandy. But at least when I heard about Ronda Rousey on casting, I'm like, okay, I could see that. Not Megan Fox. You will never, unless she becomes like a freaking crazy workaholic for the next 3 years. I'm not buying it. Even
I didn't see the second.
Gina, I could buy that too if that were to happen. Obviously,
yeah, Gina would have been a good one, but like I didn't see the second trailer until just like recently, and the whole second trailer tries to do like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith thing with Statham and her, and I'm like, if this is going to be the whole fucking movie, I'm not interested.
Ooh,
Stallone is playing a small role in this, in my opinion.
That's what I've heard.
He's like a supporting character at best.
Because I read up on it after the fact when I seen Statham's name over his. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's a red.
Is this like passing the torch to Statham?
Exactly.
Statham gets another franchise that isn't about Mega London.
I think so. Because this is kind of what he did with the Escape Plan 3. I don't know if you guys saw that one or not. Probably not.
I did not see
Escape Plan 3.
I forget that it came out.
He's literally in like 4 or 5 scenes in the whole movie. It's him setting up a new team or whatever that goes nowhere. Like that's what I have a feeling this is going to sort of. And that's the sad part is 2 and 3. That's and this is why I don't like part 2. Because part 2 is kind of half-assed doing what part 3 is doing.
I actually enjoy part 2. I do.
I
do enjoy part 2.
I remember liking the first one the best, and then
the first one's the best one. Still,
the second and third seem
good only because of fucking Mel Gibson. But anyways,
Mel Gibson's outstanding. Can you imagine how much wilder it would have been if he were in an R-rated setting? Machete, man.
What were you gonna say, Price?
No, nothing.
You said you liked the first one, yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that I liked the first one, that I thought that was the best one, and the second and third one were just kind of diminishing returns.
I feel like the third one's story-wise is a bit better than the second one, but money-wise, you can tell all the money went for the actors because the effects and shit in the third one are horrible. But the second movie feels like a weird truncated story, and they do that. And I know these movies are kind of set up on cliches, so it's not that I have a problem with it. But they do that one thing that I really hate, and that is you set up a character just to get killed.
Yeah.
And then the problem I have with the second film is Sly's not directing it, nor does he do the third film. And this is sort of a problem with both of the movies, and they feel too modern. Like, at least with that first movie, when you watch it, especially with Sly directing, it feels like an old school canon kind of movie.
Yeah.
The second one feels like a Michael Bay movie. To me, it feels like, and even though Michael Bay directed both of them, some people understand when I'm saying this. If you watch the first Bad Boys, Michael Bay's not Michael Bay yet.
You're right.
He's still inventing the Michael Bay-isms. By the time you get to Bad Boys 2, Bad Boys 2 is one of the most pure Michael Bay movies you'll ever fucking see. So to me, it feels like when you jump from Expendables to Expendables 2, that's the jarring transition there. Because you go from, this more kind of old school canon kind of throwback, because that's what it was at that time. Because we even gotten to the point where we had forgotten that by 2010, when that movie had come out, Schwarzenegger and Sly and Bruce Willis and all those guys, they were considered dinosaurs. They were doing straight to video shit, right? Except for Schwarzenegger and some of Sly's stuff.
No, Schwarzenegger was governor then, so
he was also governor for a while as well. But point being, these guys had fallen out of the limelight, so them coming back and do this throwback thing was cool. When they got to the sequel and it feels like every other Michael Bay movie, I'm just like, okay. And Van Damme's hardly in the fucking movie. That's what I realized again watching it the second time around. I don't know if they completely cut
Chuck Norris is hardly in it too.
Chuck Norris is almost in it just as much as Van Damme.
I mean, my impression.
Watch it.
My impression with the first one is they really wanted to make something special, right? They really wanted to.
Well, Sly got what he was doing, right? It was pretty clear cut what they were doing.
First one succeeded with what they were aiming for.
But it wasn't a massive success. Maybe it has a lasting appeal, but it wasn't a big smash success, right? So
pretty good.
I would argue against that, because
the only one that did
the first one domestically did the best one.
They did well.
It did, but the thing is, it did make money, and the second one did gangbusters, especially overseas. Yeah, it fell apart domestically, but it made up for it overseas. Go look at the
second one did okay domestically. It just did like 30 million less than the first one. I think
but the overseas market made up for it. That it still outgrossed the first one ultimately.
Okay.
And my problem with the third film is I like the idea of the story. My problem is it doesn't make sense as to, okay, if you're worried about killing people, then why are you getting a team of young kids together instead of a bunch of old guys that you don't know, right? Like, it makes more sense when he brings along Antonio Banderas, because this guy was already part of another crew like that. You know, even says he was in Benghazi, and he was the only guy that lived. And or whatever it is his story, he says. And like, he should have got guys like that together, like the ragtag leftovers of all these other crews, and that would have made more sense if he didn't want to kill his crew. But that kind of the whole thing, I'm scratching my head going, dude, you're called the Expendables, right? Like, the whole point is you're like a Suicide Squad. What the fuck are you doing worried about everybody dying for? Kind of goes against the whole idea of what they are. So by the third film, I'm like, Sly's kind of losing the whole idea of what the Expendables were to begin with, I think.
Well, but it doesn't help that he wasn't as creatively involved with a degree where he should have been, because he was directing with one, and the fact that he was not involved directorial wise 2 and 3, I do agree, it definitely hurt the sequels, even if the second one overall did
you're
perform
missing
better.
Jet Li in the second and third one.
Yeah, I was wondering behind the scenes.
He's in them, but he's barely in them. Yeah,
I'd love to know behind the scenes how that went along after the first movie, because they obviously had a lot of passion for that first one, and it could easily have translated to future installments. But what went on behind the scenes? Maybe it made money, right? But what was the feeling?
I kind of have an idea, as far as I don't know about any internal politics necessarily, but I can just tell you from the surface that what happened is that the second film did 30 million less than the first film did in the US, which it made money, but they also spent, I think, 20 million more, 10, 15 million more, whatever it was on the sequel. When you got to the third film, they spent 100 million on it, as opposed to, it was like 60 for the first one. I think it was 80 for the second. They spent 100 on the third one. The reason they spent 100 on the third one was that fucking cast. You got everybody in that fucking movie, from Wesley Snipes to, all the new guys they got bringing in. and Mel Gibson and shit. So you got a heavy duty cast. They spent way too much money on the cast, and they saw that and they go, we got to make this PG-13. Because the problem is, even the unrated version of that is really a PG-13 movie they were trying to make.
Yeah.
It's just a few chunks of things that are kind of just added back in so they could call it quote unquote unrated, when it really isn't that much different.
Okay, so I looked at the numbers on the first one of the Expendables, and the first opening weekend, this is back in 2010, 13 years ago, made 34 million its opening weekend. So pretty good. Obviously
Good.
That's not Marvel, no, but
no, but you do
didn't need to
inflation
be.
on that.
It
That
didn't
would be like,
need to be.
with inflation, that'd be almost like 60 million now.
Yeah, I was gonna think like 50 million, but point being is here's where it's more interesting. It had legs. Second weekend, it dropped down only 51%. And all the weekends after that, it held legs, and its worldwide number was 274, 103 domestically. So I'd still overall call it I wouldn't call it a smashing success, but it seems like it did pretty good domestically. Now, worldwide, it did 274. That is, for a movie like that, that is awesome. That's a big number. Especially at that point in time, a lot of studios would have loved to have had that for a worldwide number. Now, the second
Nation's
one,
right about the third one. It did get a HD copy leaked early. I remember that.
Yes, that's true. But I still don't. I don't buy that crap. Like every movie now,
The general public doesn't know how to get it to download a movie.
Yeah, even then, the more popular the movie is, the more downloadable it gets. So I'm sorry, even for guys like them whom I love, I'm still not gonna buy that excuse. Now, Expendables 2, it went down, let's see, 103. It actually only made 17 million less than one domestically, but its international number went up astronomically. It did 229 internationally alone. 314 million. So that was overall an improvement for the second one worldwide. And then it all kind of goes to crap, especially domestically with the third one, because international wise, it did 175, the third one. Not bad. That's pretty good. But man, the domestic market really hurt at 39. Holy crap. Yeah, that's a dive. If that third one had done, I don't know, maybe
I'm trying to remember what it would have
more
to.
I don't think it had much, because if you look at the calendar, it was August 15th of 2014. So that's 2 weeks after the original Guardians of the Galaxy hit theater. So and Guardians of the Galaxy had legs like that. So you had 2 weeks for that movie to make full steam money ahead. And when it came out, Expendables 3 didn't have legs at all. It opened at number 4 at the box office. Yeah. It couldn't compete against Guardians in its third weekend. I think that they were just bad timing, less interest, and on top of it, go PG-13. I think it was an all of the above.
Actually, it looks like it. Well, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles opened too.
Oh, was it the week after or that same weekend?
Same weekend.
Oh, well, that definitely doesn't help.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles didn't do all that great, but it still did
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a theory as to what happened. I think that first movie, they really didn't know how people would respond to it. And I think that when they did it, probably the salaries of the actors were probably, they all agreed to take lower salaries to kind of get the band together and do this thing in kind of a fun way. And once the first one was considered a success and it made money, I feel like all the managers, agents, the actors themselves, suddenly there's another movie and a third movie. I think that everybody had bigger demands. That's probably why Bruce Willis, isn't it Bruce Willis?
Well, that's actually exactly why Bruce Willis didn't show up in the third film. And they just rewrote him out and just gave his character to Harrison Ford because, and this is quote, what exactly Sylvester Stallone said. He wanted the same amount of money for less time in the movie.
Yep. That's why Harrison Ford replaced him a day later.
He called him greedy and lazy.
Yeah, I mean, the budgets on the Expendables were still pretty high for that period. I mean, 80 million to 100 million average per film.
The sequels got out of hand, yeah.
Even with, marketing at that point was nowhere near as expensive as it is today. It was probably a third cheaper. But when you take a look at those numbers, they inched by the profit margin line. on the theatrical gross, and they probably made most of the money on basically secondary markets like your first window of DVD, Blu-ray, and then your secondary window of like movie channel, Netflix, network, whatever. I mean, probably not too much on the network. Maybe more affiliates that could get away with that at late night hours. But yeah, they I think this is more like a passion project or a passion franchise for Sly, because the returns on this under the normal Hollywood metric would be like, no, it's done. Like
after the third one, you would say that, and that's what I'm saying.
It should have
been.
That
also makes sense why they're probably handing the torch off to Statham as the lead, and then from here on out, they can either go straight to streaming or.
But isn't like Statham like 45, 50?
Yeah, but Sly is fucking 80.
Yeah, I know.
So he's got a good 20 years yet. Look, if I could look as good as Jason Statham now, I wouldn't say shit. Like, the guy still looks pretty fucking good for his age. I mean, the whole point of the Expendables is these older ragtag guys. And I get it, the passing down of the torch, but you know what that did for me? That killed all the steam for me to want to go see it. I was geared up to go see it this weekend. And then when I saw that second trailer after I saw the poster, I'm like, wait a minute, why is Sly's name second? And I'm like, oh. And I'm not that big of a Jason Statham fan. I think he's all right. But I like I just said earlier, the one that really did it for me is I miss Jet Li. His
man, he was great.
Him and Sly was the best part. Like, I need a raise. I need more money.
Because you're smaller.
Because I need more money for my family. What family? That whole bit was just like their whole little rapport to me was better than him and Statham.
I agree. I do agree. Jet Li was awesome in that movie, and and we talked about earlier. His fight with Dolph Lundgren, Gunnar Jensen was absolutely phenomenal.
Definitely top 25.
Oh, what a fight! Like it was.
My
turn. You got the Titan versus the small guy. And you actually thought, oh, crud, Jet Li might actually be able to do this.
Well, it's because he uses the environment to his advantage.
Yeah, and that shows you that smart, writing and maneuvering of how you write a story and make it a very tiny guy be a towering guy like Dolph Lundgren. Now that movie made you believe that it could happen. Oh man, I can't wait till we do our Jet Li month for Toxic Tuesday. That's gonna be a blast when we do that. That's gonna be huge.
Yeah. Yes, Dolph Lundgren is in it. That's the other thing, is hardly any of the original guys are in it. It even says something about new crew, new something or other on the poster. Let me see
if they really wanted to go for that much of a younger generation and pass up the Statham, honestly, they should have just changed the name, because I feel like adding the name and living off the name, I get my built-in audience, yada yada, but I feel like now you're at the point where that hurts you now because of how much the third movie hurt it.
Well, and that's the thing. It does not feel like they're putting a whole lot of advertising into this one either. And I don't know what the budget is. I didn't even look. I think it's like 100 though.
Yeah, it's around 100.
See, Statham's name's first, Stallone, then 50 Cent, who's not been any of them. Fox. It's Megan Fox.
I mean, that's the trick. When the profits go down, the natural reaction is to change things up, right? And go for that. Never mind the old guys. Let's go for the young guy. The younger generation,
slightly younger generation. Like the only ones that look like are
56. Yeah,
get more hours out of it. Essentially, it's like, oh, okay, we've got Sly is 80. He could die in the next 5 years. Let's make sure that we give him a bow out in this franchise so we can still make these movies.
Yeah.
Even though when you take a look at the numbers versus the expenses, it's like you're not really getting any real profit here.
No. But they're probably big on video. That's the other thing, script.
I mean, based on these recent numbers, they're lucky to break 40 million on video.
Well, I don't know. I'd have to look, because I mean, I remember the first and second one being very popular on video.
The first one did like 70 something.
Yeah, and
then the other two, I think the highest between the two may have been 38, but maybe
it's in here. I might be able to look it up.
I got the numbers on the estimated DVD Blu-ray for the first one.
What is it?
First
no,
one
I want it for the third one. Sorry.
Oh, for the third one? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said 3, because first one did have pretty good numbers with the video sales. So, okay, let me get to the third one. I will get to. Give me.
For comparison, what was the first one just off?
Oh, great! I just exited out of the page.
Well, if you remembered it anyway.
DVD estimated 53, close to 54. Blu-ray 23.5.
That was early days of Blu-ray too.
Yeah, early days of Blu-ray. So that's not
about
shabby
70-ish.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you're spot on the money, Script. And now
Nice.
let's go to what a big downgrade. Oh boy. You ready? 16 for DVD.
What about the Blu-ray?
It's even lower. 11.
Really? Wow. Then why are they doing this?
Now, here's where it's interesting.
Do they have a deal maybe with Netflix or something? They're going to split
I
this
don't
on?
know.
That's the only thing that makes sense to me. Sorry, go ahead.
Here's where it's interesting. The international box office is 170 for the third movie, and that is actually a notch above the international of the first one. So clearly, there's still a market for these movies, all three of them overseas.
Yeah,
and
that's why.
it's almost like the Transformers, where the domestic market really decreases, but the international market
That's
is
probably why
strong.
Megan Fox is in it. Anyway, Clobby has to run, so I'm gonna let him get it out.
It's been awesome.
All right, buddies. Thanks for having me. Sorry I have to get out of here.
No, you're fine,
Hey,
brother.
I'll see you tomorrow night, dude.
All right, buddy. Everyone have a great one. Take care. Good night.
CC, you were about to say something.
Take care, Globby. No, I was just saying, it's the kind of movie where I could just like wake up one day and say, you know what, I just feel like watching the Expendables trilogy today, and I just sit down in front of the TV with, and just spend a few hours watching it.
No, we got
And
the
they
answer
don't
now.
have,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, no, I was just saying, it's like, to me, that's what this franchise feels like. Is they don't have to be the best ever, but as long as they're good.
Nick nailed it on the nose, though. What it is the international market. That's why this movie exists.
Yeah. That Meg movie with Statham, didn't it do well in China? Maybe they think to themselves, Statham does well in these markets, and maybe people will like him there.
And that's exactly what Sly and Schwarzenegger and all those guys, how they used to play back in the day too. Sure, their films did well here, but they all did very, very, very well overseas in all the different markets. Because of course the action
overseas still like it when a man takes like a machine gun and blows stuff up.
Well, not just that, which it does. It's true, especially in certain regions. I'm not going to get into, but as anybody will tell you, that's another reason why the Fast and the Furious franchises do well, is because it doesn't take much to translate those into other languages.
That's right. The global box office, the more accessible it is, the more likely markets you can hit. That's why comedies are domestic and dying out to the point where they're almost non-existing, and your actioneer films can do fairly decent. I would say unless this fourth Expendables film has got a budget of $60 million, it's not going to make any money.
I think the budget is closer to 100, but let me look here.
Yeah, because even if it's done with like a smaller distribution model and smaller marketing model, it's going
100
to
million
be
even.
Yeah, it's going to be a stretch.
I've seen very, very, very little marketing for this movie script.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was coming out until like a couple weeks ago. And then I forgot that it was coming out this week until the other day. So we'll see how bad it does this weekend. I don't think they care how
what studio is fronting the Expendables for?
Lionsgate. That's why they're fine with you. They probably get more. See, Lionsgate has a lot of foreign distribution deals to where I think they make a lot more on their foreign deals, if I'm not mistaken, because they're a Canadian company originally.
Well, so is Warner Brothers, but
well, you know what I mean, though. Like,
yeah,
I mean, they're actually the newer kid on the block. They've only actually been considered an American major for the last 20 years, 25 years, as opposed to Lionsgate's been around for the better part of 50 years altogether or more. But they were mainly a distributor in Canada, from my understanding, for years, and then they started hitting the U.S. market because they actually had some original material they started releasing. So, yeah. And then ever since then, they've been kind of like a mini major of sorts or whatever. John Wick was their big one, but the Expendables before John Wick did very well for them. And a couple other things, but no, because I know that because a lot of times when I get a little northern Wisconsin, they have once in a while I'd run across Canadian released VHS. So like Alliance would release a lot of the Disney titles and stuff up there, the Miramax.
Oh, Alliance released they did Disney,
New Line,
They did a bunch of New Line stuff.
Yeah, because I had a TMNT3 with an Alliance symbol on it, and I had a Clerks video with an Alliance symbol on it.
Yeah,
but I also noticed Lionsgate was another one of the companies that would release a lot of movies up there too. Back then,
my first year in college, I was a reader with Alliance Atlantis.
Yeah,
it was a terrible job because they were basically just saying we're not going to be distributing or co-producing any films anymore. It's like, why? Yeah. It was,
so basically, Lionsgate did the opposite. Then it seems like, from my understanding, because like I said, back then I knew their names simply because they were a distributor on videos most of the time that Alliance or whoever else wasn't, Canadian copies. And then all of a sudden they started doing a more original material that started making it into the U.S. market. Saw was another one of their big original ones that I remember.
Saw.
That was probably one of their first, if I remember right, that might even be the first one that came to the American market that really hit big for them. I know they had a few minor ones, like they were partially distributors on like Dogma, for instance. Like them in Columbia were.
Yeah, I mean they actually started
stuff like that. Yeah,
they started doing real actual releases in 2000. Like American Psycho was kind of like the first
okay.
one.
So actually, that was their first one. You're right. Script. I'm sorry.
And then
that would have been their first one.
I'm pretty sure they were attached to Cube as well, because
I think that was a code
and they needed
preview, wasn't it?
for that, because they've been around for a while, just doing basic distribution. But then they actually started.
That's what I'm saying.
Production. Yeah.
They made so much money on Saw.
That's what I'm saying. Between
Saws were the cheapest films ever. Everybody that I knew of in Toronto that worked in special effects, set design, and makeup worked at some capacity on a Saw film, and they got to pitch how they would do the kills, and then they just write those into the scripts. I remember being at the premiere and annoying everyone in my row because I accidentally spoiled the movie, even though it was the first time there. Where I'm like, oh, the dead guy's not the dead guy.
And actually, I think in the U.S., if I remember right, American Psycho was originally released through Artisan Entertainment, which was what Live Entertainment had turned into, and eventually Lionsgate turned around and bought them anyway.
Probably,
because if I remember right, because I remember the day Saw came in, because it was a very distinct case. Because we always had to, when I worked for Movie Gallery, we had to physically do it ourselves to switch them over to our cases, and that came in that. Yeah, they came in that clear case with the slip cover and all that shit with the hand and all that business. And I remember my boss going, "That is not going on the fucking shelf." And I said, "Why? Well, this is awesome." And I saw the thing Lionsgate. I'm like, "Wait a minute, like that's a Canadian company."
So is Entertainment One, which you probably have seen. Remember seeing a lot of that.
Yes, E1 or whatever. Yep. Yeah, no, and then and like I said, I just remember that distinctly because that cover just stuck out to me, and it was like that was different at that time. We'd never seen it because it was all clear and you could see through it, and the disc looked like a saw.
They came out with the later ones where they had fake blood inside of them.
Yes,
walked around.
Yep, yeah, like a special edition. But first reason was because we couldn't figure out how to put the whole deal on there because it didn't have like the standard slip cover. So they're like, first of all, that was one reason. She's like, and people will steal those. Secondly, it was just too gruesome. She's like, we're not putting dismembered body parts out like that on the shelf. I don't care what corporate said. So I can't remember how we did it, but we cut up, I think, the plastic case and then put like a white piece of paper underneath it. So all it had was like the title and all, like, I think there was blood splatter on the original one, but it wasn't the actual moving blood like you're talking about script like they had later.
Yeah.
And I think that was actually for one of the sequels, actually, if I'm not mistaken. That might have been for like Saw 2.
Probably. I can't remember. There was like 8 Saw movies.
I know, but like, yeah, I do remember that one too, because that was another pain in the butt one. Because that's the other problem, is we always had to hang on to them for when we resold them. So like we just because we changed our covers out because we had our special covers that had the locks on them, and then we just switch them back over when we'd sell them. But because Movie Gallery didn't get their shit through standard distributor like everybody else did. 9 times out of 10, but we couldn't get through Warner Brothers or a certain distributor through Movie Gallery. We went over and we bought at Walmart.
Oh God, that makes it harder for you to make your money back.
Not. Yeah. Exactly, but that's exactly what we'd have to do. We'd have to take out a slip. We go over there. We'd take the amount of money or whatever for X amount of copies. We'd have to write it all out with the receipt and have that in the thing for the day. And yeah, it was a pain because we ran into this issue with there was certain distributors that didn't want to work with us because they had deals with Blockbuster, and there was one specifically that really pissed off corporate, And that was when the Weinsteins made that exclusive deal with Blockbuster, and they released like Clerks 2. I'm trying to remember the other couple titles it was. I think it was Scream 4, maybe Sin City, and a couple others that were directly only through Blockbuster. So they said it come from corporate down and just said, fuck that, go over to Walmart and buy out every single fucking copy they let you. Because they were pissed about that thing. And they're like, they're not going to have this exclusive shit. Like, it was like, there was a couple more titles in that, but it was like a deal they had made through Blockbuster at that time. So I remember having to go over, and we actually had to go to multiple Walmarts because that was the thing. Those were not in very many quantities because they were smaller titles. So like Scream 4 wasn't a problem, but like Clerks 2, they only had like 5 of them at Walmart. So we're like, what the fuck? We got to get like 20 of these or whatever. So we had to go to like multiple Walmarts and shit. It was a pain in the ass. Anyway, long story short, I want to thank everybody for listening to the Video Store Days.
My pleasure.
I do miss DVD Tuesday, though. I miss going out on Tuesday.
That's on film threat now.
I know, I'm glad he brought it back, but I actually miss the physical act of getting up, taking that day off from work. I always made sure I had Tuesdays off so I could, because it actually started at Walmart would start putting them out at midnight and they were open 24 hours a day. So the day would actually start at midnight, Monday night. You'd go to Walmart and wait for see what they put out or get what you can there. And then whatever they didn't get, you'd have to get to Best Buy at 10 o'clock the next morning to get the rest of it. And then Target would sometimes have exclusive too. That was your whole Tuesday, was going around getting all the DVDs and then eventually Blu-rays that came out. And then it just kind of went away after a while with all the streaming shit when they quit carrying everything. You just had to order it all the time. So, I mean, yeah, it's more convenient, but I miss that. I miss the hunt,
Oh, I do too. I still do. Luckily, I'm in the position where I can do that with when albums come out that I like. Because, obviously, it's not like I can just go down the street to Best Buy again now, but now I have to go to, Chirac or slightly out of Chirac to go to those really obscure record stores that are still out there to find them. But yeah, it's definitely missing when if one store didn't have it, you could go to another. I have to now hope for the 1 or 2 stores. If one or two don't have them, you're absolutely shit out of luck. But man,
Yeah.
I definitely do miss it because the journey was fun because I didn't just give up if Best Buy didn't have them. You could maybe Target might it was such a fun journey, like going around hunting for things store to store to store.
Oh yeah,
you didn't see the one store and give up. You just motivated you to find it even more.
I did that with video games. I'd get on to I get on the internet, or whatever, Yellow Pages at one point, and locate every video game store within 50 miles of my house. And I'd locate 20 of them or something like that. And I would just take the entire day and drive to one after the other, trying to find, like rare games that don't usually show up.
Well, that's kind of the closest I get to that kind of a thing anymore, is going to like a used store and finding a really good one, or a pawn shop that has a really nice selection. But yeah, you were going to say something, Price. Sorry.
Exactly what you were saying, that recently there was a garage sale. Somebody just did some kind of garage sale near where I live. And I went there and they had all of these DVDs and CDs, like music, but a lot of really known stuff. And each thing they were selling was like $1. And I ended up I got a bunch of stuff. I don't even know why. I enjoyed the process of going through those DVDs and CDs and buying them, probably more than even watching them.
I did the same thing with music one summer. I took my paycheck every week, and I'd hop on a boat to Victoria, which is near where I am right now, and there was like a used CD store, and just piles and piles of music you never heard of that you wouldn't even necessarily hear on the radio, and some of them you would. And I just, like those dollar CDs, I would just blow my whole paycheck buying whatever CDs I thought looked cool.
Oh,
and I'd spend the next week going through them, listening to them.
Especially when vinyl started to kick in again, CC, and the price of CDs went just crashing down, and like you just said, they could barely get rid of them. You could go in and buy $1, $2 CDs all the time.
Oh yeah.
I rebuilt my collection because for years from DJing, my shit was just trashed and or stolen. So I had to basically rebuild everything I could. And not only that, I kept that's where I kind of just started buying every soundtrack I could find almost too. I didn't even care if I liked it. I just would grab one. And, it's just, and because of that, because it was so cheap, now I have, Christ, probably 3 times what I ever had when I was DJing. I still have the digital selection, I whatever, but I lost all my original digital shit back in the day because I went and, like most dipshits, I went and put all my CDs in digitally and then threw them all in like a fucking book somewhere. And,
Yeah.
I didn't care about them over the years. And my kid got a hold of them here and there and whatnot, like I said. And then, they just got trashed over the years. I lost all the cases for them. And I'm like, shit, it'd be nice to have all the cases and everything for it. So I salvaged what I
lost
could.
A few rare ones too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing that bothered me too, is some of the rare ones that I got when I went looking for some that I couldn't find. It was like, oh Jesus. So like I said, I did salvage what I could. I found it was really cheap to get a box, like a nice size box of blank CD cases. So I had a lot of them, with just broken ones, and I just fixed them. But anyway, moving on. Let's get out of here. We got some more super chats. Nikki D says think the WGA strike will end tomorrow? I don't know about tomorrow, Nikki. I think that's a little too optimistic. What do you think, Script?
No, they might be tomorrow, but they're taking Yom Kippur off because that's this weekend. So we'll see tomorrow. If not tomorrow, maybe Tuesday. We'll see what
my
happens.
honest prediction,
really
and I'm not kidding.
Optimistic.
My honest prediction, if it's not that soon already, Script, which that would be cool, and maybe they are making that kind of progress, is I think it'll just get done just in time for Christmas break. Because I know how Hollywood runs. They're like, good, we're going back to work. Time for Christmas break.
Well, there's also Thanksgiving Day break. You have to remember they do that in November as well. No, if they want to listen, the only way they're able to actually do it taking a Christmas break is if they've actually paid anyone beforehand. Otherwise, it's like, no, you're working through Christmas.
We'll see. But you're right.
We'll
That's
see.
the thing is normally Hollywood is like takes off, like you just said, basically from just like November through December, and then they come back to work in January. Basically.
Yeah. Well, some of the bigger wigs take off like 6 weeks.
Right.
And that's usually like the last week of November, and they come back after the first week of January.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
There's only been a handful of cases when the bigger studios didn't take off it, and one of those was 2019, The Rise of Skywalker, where everybody had to work because they had to get that movie ready for their release date. And I would not be surprised if a number of people are saying the dumbest thing we ever did was move Star Wars to Christmas.
Probably. Well, and that was not because they wanted to; it was because of necessity at that point, because the fucker kept getting delayed. Yeah. It was like make or break, and they're like,
going to be a May thing, and then they decided, okay, we'll do Christmas for Force Awakens, and then that ended up being the habit.
Yeah.
Or
because that put everything behind is basically what happened.
Yes, but listen, it'd be great if the WGA strike ends tomorrow. Here's what's actually most likely going to happen. The WGA will get a deal before the Christmas break, but SAG-AFTRA won't. And without the actors working, the studios will still be relatively shut down. However, you'll have 6 to 8 weeks, ideally, of pre-production hitting the ground hard, just getting stuff ready, so that as soon as the SAG strike is done, talent is hired and they jump.
I was going to say it's almost kind of like it works out that way, that it doesn't really matter as long as the writers can get back to work. Then you guys, like you just said, you can get pre-production in order. And then in that meantime, then the actors can get their shit worked out. And by the time you guys are ready to start hitting production on a lot of things, then the actors will be able to come back to work.
Not only that, IATSE members will start be working again when the writers come back, because they'll actually start doing construction, striking sets, getting things
building
going.
Stuff and all that
and
shit. Yeah.
You also have to remember, IATSE has their contract expires in July of next year, which means they'll be starting negotiations in June, maybe earlier. And the better deals that the writers and actors get means the better deal that IATSE gets. And so for those that are saying, well, Drew Barrymore did wrong by her employers or whatnot, the question I have to ask you is, if IATSE goes on strike, are you going to have the same mentality when it comes to the other talent that was on strike now? Because they most likely might end up doing the exact same thing. And if it's the only way that they can get a good deal, I'd support them on that, because they're supporting us.
No, and we had that discussion the other day of how this is so weird that they didn't continue certain things when
They should have, but it was just off. It doesn't make sense. Probably has to do with something. Paul Chatta was talking about how it might have to do with the integration of YouTube, because if you take a look at some of the network channels, like NBC, ABC, CBS, and whatnot, they've been uploading for the past 3 months highlight scenes from some of their classic shows from years ago, like House, and
they make lots of money off that
NCIS and all that stuff to try and get something.
Well, even Paramount's been loading up full length episodes and or like chunks of, like, they uploaded the whole first season in, you know, the whole 5-episode chunk of the season 1 of Ninja Turtles on YouTube, for instance, and shit. So
the new one?
No, the original.
The
87 cartoon.
The 87, the Chuck Lorre.
The original 5-episode arc of the first season. Yeah, they just threw it up as a whole thing. Yeah. For free.
Nick's gotta go.
Yeah, there you go. So something's
Nick's gotta go.
So, darn. Okay, have a good night, Nick.
No, you too, Script. Thanks for having me, Tom. Guys, come hang out in Comics Divisions Thursday Night Throwdown.
Yeah, I'll probably head over there.
I don't know what we'll talk about, but I'm not gonna plug anything. You guys know where to find me. Check me out. If you guys want to put my link in chat, that's all up to you. But
we do. We have.
Yeah. Thank you. Seriously, guys, good show, awesome show. Thank you very much. Bye, guys.
All right.
Yeah.
Pilgrim Media says, fun facts, Herd headed for the wall like Indy. Herd headed for the wall like
Aquaman 2.
Well, I mean, she's got Aquaman 2, and I think she has another film coming out as well.
That independent feature like made a whole like $7, I heard. I'm not even exaggerating. It was literally like in the low thousands it made, or whatever it was. Yeah, if that's what you mean, absolutely, I can see that. Six sent us a pooper sticker. Thank you so much, Six. And she's not here tonight because she had to work, but hopefully she'll be back again on Tuesday. Elf says, script, should movie franchises have built-in endings, so if someone like KK don't ruin the franchise's legacy or ruin what came before?
Built-in ending is not going to save you.
Yeah, no, because they're always gonna want to try and find another way to expand it.
Yep, it doesn't matter unless you like the one thing that you can do. And this is the best advice I got back when I started out, which is that if you got a property that you think is going to become a potential franchise, and you start hearing franchise talks while you're in negotiations, don't sell it, just license it. Keep control of it and keep it to your estate.
I don't know how you feel about this, but there's one thing that I think through television and movies that they seem to have forgotten when it comes to trying to franchise or serialize or continue on with these shows and stuff. It's kind of like the old rule from comic books, which is kind of weird how comic book movies haven't adopted this at all. And that is, at the end, everything has to be reset to the way it was at the beginning. So if somebody else takes over later on, they don't have to have picked up a bunch of stuff that was left over from the previous shit. Like, yes, you can have overarching stories and things go through, but at the end of every series, and South Park actually made fun of this and still does for years, right? Like, the whole idea is no matter what shit happens throughout that entire 30 minutes of the show, at the end of that show, everything has to be reset to the way it was at the beginning. Somehow. You know, I'm not saying that has to be that for everything, but that's the easiest way to tie it up for everybody else.
It's not a permanent thing. It's basically, the reset is not a literal reset. The reset is just that they're closer to the same position, because South Park has done this before, where they actually drop references to previous episodes and other things that have happened and so forth. So again, it's not a full reset. It's just basically saying that there is whatever has changed, that significant change before the actual conclusion is going to be the new starting point to some degree in the next episode, next entry, what have you. It's the old sitcom formula. Usually in sitcoms, for the first 2 seasons, everything is kind of reset to 1. And then when you get to like season 3 and 4 and stuff, the things that have happened in previous episodes factor in again for other stories, because you're actually
reset is probably not the actual word.
You're rewarding the audience that is invested, but at the same time, you're not excluding the new audience.
Yes.
And that's something that's really important. In fact, some of the best arc you can actually have when it comes to continuity without the need to see previous stuff would be the character of Frasier Crane, who started on Cheers, had his own series. He's got another one coming up in October that's debuting. However, when you see the transition between Cheers and Frasier, they're very different shows, but there's enough of a familiarity there where you can start Frasier and you have no need to watch Cheers to understand what's going on. And that is something that was actually kind of very brilliant. And the same thing can happen when it comes to Family Matters and trading and Perfect Strangers, because Family Matters is a spinoff of Perfect Strangers. And same thing with the Jeffersons and All in the Family, and to a degree, All in the Family and Archie's Place, which was the sequel to that series.
Well, Reset maybe not be the word I
tried
should
to have
use,
a sequel
but...
as well that didn't spin off, that didn't quite work. Even Barney Miller had a spinoff of Fish that lasted 2 seasons. So,
but you're kind of complicating what I'm saying, but also at the same time, you did say what I was trying to say, and that was, it is a way that they used to write, especially, and I know you guys have been bringing up great examples like Gilligan's Island, Star Trek, all great examples. Sitcoms always had that, and part of that reason was so whatever writer was coming in, they didn't have to adhere to a bunch of bullshit. Like everything was kind of set
tiny minutia was not required. It was,
and the audience as well. Sorry,
and they didn't have
get
streaming.
Your show Bible. Yeah, you get your show Bible of the characters. This is their behaviors and stuff, and then you can throw them into any conflict, and then you just play out the behaviors reacting to those conflicts.
Exactly.
And that's how you keep it familiar. Comic book movies haven't done this, even though it looked like they were getting on to that track initially, at least on the Marvel side of things.
Right.
And then it just veered right off. And then, of course, their biggest mistake, and the one that they should have been doing from the get-go, which is that you treat the comic book franchise that you're doing like James Bond, in a sense of that you allow the opportunity for the characters to be recast, and you find a very clever way to do it. People thought that was what was happening with Batman from 89 to 97, because again, people accepted it. Val Kilmer comes in replacing Keaton. Nobody batted an eye. Yeah, they were disappointed that Keaton wasn't there, but a lot of people turned out for Batman Forever. It did gangbusters.
Absolutely.
And then people actually turned out for George Clooney, but then the movie was not good enough.
Didn't resonate afterwards.
For people to resonate after that. And it ended up taking them almost 10 years to bounce back from that. And with Batman Begins. But the other part too is like with Nolan's Batman trilogy, there was nothing stopping them from making more Batman movies that followed through that trilogy without Christopher Nolan or Christian Bale. Warner Brothers just decided not to do that because it was at a period of time in Warner Brothers in the early 2000s, up until Zaslav took over, where a lot of the people at the head of the studio had no clue what the hell was going on. They got incredibly lucky with Harry Potter and the Dark Knight trilogy, and they haven't actually done anything of note since. As a result of that, Disney kind of took over.
Well, Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings are a different kind of storytelling than we're kind of talking about, but at the same time, it still kind of falls in this. I think Gilligan's Island really sums up exactly what we're saying, right? Like you can have any number of fucking things happen in that 30 minutes, but at the end of that show, they're not getting off that island.
They're not getting off that island.
It's just the way the show ended without them getting off the fucking island.
They did have the reunion movies, though. The ones with the
Harlem movies,
Harlem Globetrotters are playing basketball with them on the island or something with robots.
They leave, and then the rest of them are left behind. It's like
they still found a way in those movies where they escaped. They always end up right back where they were.
Right. You're right.
That was the joke. I mean, what was it? 74. They did another bring back a reunion of the show, and everybody was like laughing that they're still on the island after the show ended a few years earlier.
Well, it's because it got canceled before they ever got off. Like it wasn't like I don't think they were ever planning not to get them off the island. It just
I think Sherwood Schwartz basically said that if they knew they're getting a last season, the last episode would be them getting off the island.
Yeah, exactly. I think I remember hearing something like that.
Because again, I think they did in the 80s. They actually ended up having Gilligan's Island turned into a resort, so people could come and go as they please. But Gilligan kind of owned and ran the island.
Yeah, that was like a revival show. I think they were trying to do. If not, it was a backdoor TV movie or something like that. I know what you're talking about. There's like 4 or 5 fucking Gilligan movies.
Wasn't the resort the one with the robots and the Harlem Globetrotters? I remember robots.
That might be it.
It's been tough. I kind of want to revisit Gilligan's Island because it is goofy.
It's but it's at its core, it really kind of is fundamental 101 writing.
Yeah.
Right. You have all these different archetypal characters there. They're stuck in a situation. It's not like you have any outside world interference. It is a perfect sitcom setup. And like we said, at the end of the show, they don't get off the island. No matter what happens at the end of the show, they don't get off the island. So in syndication, it forever sits there in a cycle. You know what I mean? Like it just continually goes on in a cycle. Because I don't even remember. I think in the first episode it may actually show the voyage, but I don't remember if it does or not. If it's just all told in that intro, and then the episode just starts with them on the island.
I think
The
it
first
starts
episode
with
has
them
them
getting to
trying to
the
survive.
island.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. Yeah, I was trying to remember.
It's in black and white, the first one, and I vaguely remember that's the one. It starts with them arriving on the island, but maybe
I think
I'm
the whole
wrong.
first season is in black and white, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But I think after that,
the first
color.
season is black and white. The first episode is basically Gilligan is manning the wheel with the skipper, and they're in a storm. And there's gags and jokes helping up there, and then the storm clears. But as the storm clears, they've already crashed on the island, and they're like, "Oh, there's a big hole in the boat."
See, now I think in syndication as a kid, I don't think they ever showed that first episode all that much. Because I know I've seen almost every single episode 20,000 fucking times, but I know I don't think I've ever seen that episode specifically.
I think I vaguely remember. You're right. First of all, in syndication, they didn't always love showing the black and white episodes to begin with, but I do remember seeing it. And I think that what happens in the first one is that by the end of it, they decide that that Gilligan is the president of the island, or it's Gilligan's island. Something happens that they vote him because everybody wants to be the leader. Am I wrong? Like I don't know if now like it's like a weird Mandela effect, but I think that everybody wants to be the leader.
On one of the streaming services, and now I want to go watch it too.
Everybody wants to be the leader of the island, and at the end they all vote that Gilligan should be the leader.
CBS show or is it ABC?
I
think it was ABC.
Might have been ABC. Yeah, you can see it on Tubi and Prime and Apple.
And then of course you had the cartoon somebody mentioned in the chat as well, Gilligan's Planet. That was taking the shit way too far.
Yeah.
Then they showed up on an episode of Scooby-Doo, if I remember right, or one of the Scooby-Doo movies, or whatever you would want to call them, the hour episodes. But anyway, yeah, that's a great question, Alf, but I don't know if a definitive ending really fixes anything. Look at even Lord of the Rings as a great example, right? Look what they did to The Hobbit. Because they wanted to stretch it out when in all logic, it should have just been a 3-hour movie or whatever. And that's it.
It's really the main reason I left Netflix, that I'm not subscribed to them anymore. It's because I could never count on them to finish the series they started.
That's a problem. And you know what? CC, I had that. That was my last few years of television, terrestrial television, was I got pissed because shows like V and the Terminator series that I really got into, they would all get canceled. Yeah. And I'm like, well, what the fuck's the point of starting to watch and get invested in any of these shows when they're not going to last more than a season or two?
Well, V and Sarah Connor Chronicles were canceled because of the blowback from the writer's strike.
I was going to say, wasn't that a writer's strike thing? Yeah.
Well, a lot of the good writers in that first season, they loved that show, but they were also trying to pitch their other shows. And what ended up happening is that for some strange reason, I don't know all the details of it for Sarah Connor Chronicles, but some of the writers, as soon as they came back into work, other shows that were force majeured out needed time slots. And so they ended up picking up some of the pilots that were pitched before the strike hit. And some of the writers had to leave Sarah Connor to go helm their own television shows. And that's why the second season of the Sarah Connor Chronicles was trash, because all the good writers left and they had to scramble to fill in those seats. Tough. And then the same thing with V. I think they were trying to go Heroes style with it, which I think is what turned a lot of people off. And Heroes also, there's another one that
Heroes, I don't remember the first season of Heroes was great.
I think V
it was
got
very slow, but interesting.
See, I don't remember V going bad. I think that got left on a cliffhanger, and I think that just actually got force majeure just because of the strike. I'd have to go check again, but you're probably right. I know you're right about Sarah Connor, because when it came back, it sucked.
Yeah. Well, let's see here. I gotta double check on it. It was a 2000. So V started in 2009. So that was already the year after the strike. So I don't think.
Never mind then.
That
was all
on its own accord. Yeah.
I think it was costs and some other things, because the show ended on like a cliffhanger. Because that's the thing, is V has never been a show that's been able to like just let it do its thing.
Yeah, it only ended up getting it had a very short season. I think it was only a 12-episode season.
And I didn't want to like the new version. I watched the first episode. And I got sucked into it. I'm like, you motherfuckers. Like, and it kept getting better and better. And I'm like, God damn, how did they take this concept and take it to this next level? And they got these great actors. And you had that what's her name, who ended up being in Deadpool and shit.
Marina
Marina Bacardi,
yeah, as the one chick in it, and and then they even brought back in like Mark Singer and stuff like that. So that was like really cool and shit. Like I was like, oh fuck, cool, yeah. And it just like quit because then they never brought it back. Like, what the hell?
You know what
got
shows?
To the point...
Sorry,
go ahead. Go ahead. Please.
I was saying that the strike, that last one, helped Breaking Bad. I think that they were going to kill off Aaron Paul, like his character. This was maybe it's a rumor. I vaguely remember something. Maybe even Vince Gilligan mentioned it years ago. Is that I think he was considering killing off Jesse, and because there was a strike, and I guess he had a lot of time to think about it and look at the episodes of the first season, he kind of started feeling that maybe there's more that could be done with the character. So it could be that the character and the whole trajectory of the story was basically crafted because of the strike.
No, because the show premiered in 2008 after the strike. He had a hiatus that he did after between season 1 and 2. Not a very very long one in comparison, but he was getting too much feedback of how many people liked Jesse. That's what changed it for him. Because
okay, I thought the strike had something to do with it, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, not unless he was sitting on his outline during 2007 and basically thinking that way. But no, that show premiered in 2008. Yeah, like I think it premiered during the strike, if I'm not mistaken, but only a couple of episodes premiered before the strike was then ended.
But I think that what happened was that he had a lot of time during the strike to sit and think about it, and that's when I think that he came to the epiphany of doing more with Jesse's character. I vaguely remember interviews where he said that. I could be wrong. It's not. It's sort of like a byproduct of the strike, meaning he had time to kind of watch the footage and kind of see how people felt about Jesse, and the time that it gave him enough to think about it and not want to get rid of him. Apparently,
well, he had the opportunity to get a lot of direct fan feedback, because when it premiered in January, they were still another few weeks out before the strike was resolved. So he was basically getting audience reactions instead of it filtered through the normal processes that you get when you're, in the office.
Well, didn't they end up doing that spin-off movie afterwards anyway? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Well, they did the Netflix one, I think, in the midst of doing Better Call Saul, right?
Yeah.
I enjoyed the movie.
I like the movie too. It was all right.
That's what I'm saying, because that's what they ended up doing with the character anyway. Was my point I was bringing to the table.
Yeah, but
I never actually watched the show, so I don't know. Sorry.
Well, there was a good year between the end of season 1 and season 2, so that's probably where he had to revamp everything. Because again, he did take a hiatus from that, probably due to the strike. Because I wouldn't, given the fact that it debuted in January, it means that they had to have been shooting it and getting it prepped and edit prior to the launch of the strike that happened in November. So that would mean that they probably shot those first 7 or 8 episodes right up into the line of end of October. And then that was it for whatever they could turn in script wise. And so from those next couple months where you have your directors and actors and producers without writing credits, cutting and getting the show in good order for it to be released in January, that's probably where he started getting all his information that he needed to. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not going to kill off this character. Maybe I'm going to take it into this direction. So that could probably be what you heard in the interview with him.
Possibly, yes.
Yeah.
But that show proves that it's always good that you have a showrunner that's a writer and knows what he's doing.
Well, I mean, that's usually mostly the case, but as we've been learning on the side of Disney things, technically Kevin Feige has been the quote showrunner of all the Marvel series, and he's just hired a head writer to do what he needs.
I'm sorry, I got to share this.
Go for it.
We got some breaking news. Pauly Shore tweets out, I've noticed the reactions to me playing Richard Simmons in a biopic. I heard he's living in Big Bear. Oh, you've been playing phone tag? Yes, he has a phone. I'm trying to make it happen, buddies. In the meantime, hit up all the big producers. I'll see you at the Academy 2025. Ow! I'm pretty sure that's
yeah.
So an independent biopic of Richard Simmons. If they don't have the long-standing feud between him and David Letterman, it will be a disappointment.
Not just that, how's he going to handle the dick sucking scenes?
I've actually interacted with Pauly Shore in the past.
I've always been a Pauly Shore fan. I never got on the hate train.
I didn't dislike him, but he is very kind of eccentric.
I've heard he's a little egotistical too from people.
Yeah. He was difficult, but it's okay. It didn't bother me. I mean,
I have heard that he's really calmed down. So like that's the thing. Like, have you ever seen the movie Pauly Shore's Dead?
Haven't seen that one.
Okay, you should check it out because I heard that kind of around that time is when he kind of had like a
revelation.
A revelation or moment where he kind of realized, I'm annoying. Whatever.
I mean,
he kind of
having a revelation. David S. Goyer is trying to have a revelation and rewrite history. It's all crazy this past year.
Pauly Shore's Dead is actually a hell of a lot better than it has any fucking right to be. If anybody else has seen it, back me up on this shit.
I haven't seen it since college.
Okay, but you do know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty clever. It's hilarious. It's funny. I mean, sure, it's a bit self-indulgent, don't get me wrong, but it's him kind of, like you said, working some shit out, dealing with it, but in a funny fucking way, having some fun, a lot of fun poked at himself. I mean, he takes the piss out of himself a lot in that movie, so you got to give him credit for that. And I mean, he even makes fun of him losing his own fucking show. Remember?
Which show did he?
The Fox show, the Pauly Shore show. After
I forgot about that.
Like 2 or 3 episodes or whatever it was. Yeah. And I think in the movie they portray it like they cancel it before the show's even over. Like, yeah, like halfway through the show they switch it to another show or something like that. It's been years since I've seen it. I don't think it's ever come out on Blu-ray, but I have the DVD somewhere. Maybe I'll have to hook you guys up with that. I'd talk to Pauly Shore. I'd love to have Pauly Shore on. But anyway, Abdulio says, does Midnight's Edge have a Streamlabs? Yeah, we do. I don't know how to use it. It's got more reasonable word count than YouTube Supers. Or no, Streamlabs. We don't have Streamlabs. No, we have the I don't know what it is we have. We have the other things. We have PayPal and a couple other things. Streamlabs is that thing you have to. I never got into that.
Is the middleman to the PayPal thing.
Yeah, I never got into that. I should check that out though. Thanks for bringing that up, Abdulio. I'll bring that up to Andre because that's more his domain, and then once he knows how to use it, then I can figure it out. So, but yeah, I forgot all about I keep forgetting about Streamlabs. But I wonder if we're going to start doing some more Rumble stuff anyway, especially considering.
That'd be good. I mean, it is kind of a growing platform, and I mean, I've got a Rumble, but I can't stream to it yet. Got to figure that out.
Well, we figured that out, I guess. I didn't know how to do it, but Nina showed Andre, and after the success of that was Toxic Femme the other night, and you know, even though Gary got his video reinstated, I think that's still making us think like, yeah, maybe we're gonna have to start having more spicier conversations over on Rumble. So even when they get even stuff we used to think would be okay on YouTube, because yeah, we can't afford to get shut down. So. But with that, we're caught up, and I want to thank you guys for hanging in there for a lot longer than I expected the show to go tonight. Price, you got anything coming up you want to plug besides your channel?
Nothing special. Just I guess just my channel.
All right. Script Doctor, your Patreon or anything else you want to plug?
No, that's about it for now.
All right. CC.
Friday night karaoke.
Okie dokie.
That's what we do. We sing songs.
I should be there. And with that, that is the show, kids. Take care of yourselves and each other. And we'll see you on the next one.